regular meeting of the Ojai Planning Commission for December 15th, 2021. Sherry, would you call roll?
Roll.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Turned the mic off. I don't normally do that. I'm calling to order the regular meeting of the Ojai Planning Commission for Wednesday, December 15th, 2021. Sherry, would you call roll, please?
Chair Colossi?
Here.
Vice Chair Nolan?
Here.
Commissioner Trent?
Here.
Commissioner Bennett?
Here.
And Commissioner Lottis will be absent this evening.
Okay. And Vice Chair Nolan, if you would lead us in the pledge, please.
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. See, we have a lot of potentially new people here tonight. You will see two of our commissioners are zooming in, and you'll find them on the screens on the side walls here. Commissioner Bennett and I will be here in person, obviously. We have city staff, planning department, and our assistant city attorney, Nikhil Domley, and our, starting next month, new assistant city attorney, Epi Margolin. Margolin? Yeah. Margolin. My apologies. All right, so we all know who's playing tonight. Next up is public communications, time set aside during the Planning Commission for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items of city business other than those that are on the agenda tonight. And matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the Commission, but will generally be referred to staff or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, we cannot take any action at this time. Do we have anyone for public communications?
No.
Okay, very good. Then we'll move on to the consent items. We have two consent items tonight which can be voted on together. Minutes of the regular meeting of December 1st and the special meeting of December 8th. Does any commissioner have any refinements to those minutes? Hearing nothing suggested, could we have a motion on approval of the consent items?
Chair Pelosi, I'll make a motion.
Very good, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the December 1st, 2021 meeting, and then the minutes from the December 8th, 2021 meeting of the Ojai Planning Commission.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I think Commissioner Bennett got in just before you.
Oh, that's fine too.
Very good. Any discussion? Sherry, would you call roll on the consent items then?
Colossi?
Yes.
Nolan?
Yes.
Trent?
Yes.
Bennett?
Excellent. All right, next is disclosure of site visits, and we have 3 sites in play tonight. The 315 North Montgomery, 302 South Montgomery, and 401 East Topa Topa. Vice Chair Nolan,
Yes.
have you visited the sites?
I am familiar with all 3 sites and have had no ex parte contacts.
Terrific. Commissioner Trent?
Familiar with all the sites, no ex parte contact.
Terrific. And Commissioner Bennett?
I'm familiar with all 3 sites and have visited, although not recently, the North Montgomery site.
Okay. And I'm familiar with all 3 sites and have walked around all 3. In fact, 3 on the North Montgomery site twice in this past week. No ex parte contacts. All right. Item 3 then, a public hearing item.
Before you open it,
I'm
we're
sorry,
going to have
yes?
Commissioner Trent recused prior to announcing.
Oh, that's correct, yes. Commissioner Trent lives within the 300-foot boundary of
500
Item
foot.
3.
500 foot
Oh,
boundary.
500 foot, excuse me. And so We'll have to turn you off. I guess you can listen to the meeting, but we'll have to exclude you until we are through with dealing with item 3. Thank you for that reminder.
Where is he? Oh, here. And then I would just take off. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so. Got it.
Okay, I see Commissioner Trent is no longer on screen. Very good. So there'll be 3 of us deliberating this one. Lucas, would you give us a start, please?
Sure, I'd like to have Maura kind of start us off here,
Terrific.
and then I'll wrap it up.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening to you and the Commissioners. The request is for a minor conditional use permit and a director's exemption from a design review permit from Planning Commission review for an outdoor dining facility, including Tivoli lights and an alcohol beverage control license type 42, which prohibits minors for a wine bar. The property is located at 315 North Montgomery Street and is in the general commercial zone set between residential uses. The wine bar includes an indoor retail boutique and outdoor patio area. The hours of operation are Wednesday through Friday from 4 to 8 p.m., Saturday from 12 to 8 p.m., and Sunday from 12 to 6 p.m. There's an existing parking lot at the rear of the site with 9 spaces. One of them is designated as handicap. In 2013, the ABC, that's the Alcohol Beverage Control, issued the Type 42 license for wine tasting in a bar and patio. At the time, staff identified the ABC that alcohol beverage sales on site are permitted. At the time, the size and nature of the patio was unknown, and inquiries were made by an architect or a designer at the time, but no formal application was submitted for conversion from what previously existed prior to the wine bar. In May of 2020, the ABC approved a temporary COVID-related expansion for an increase in the outdoor patio seating that also included a trailer at the back of the site, which is also in the parking lot and at the back of the patio, and it's there currently. Historically, the Planning Commission has approved a couple of uses and expansions on the property prior to this current use. Some of them were followed through with and some were not. One of those was in 1995, and it was to have one covered parking space for the second-story residential use. The last known use was a culinary school in 2011. In May of this year, there were complaints received from individuals in the community regarding disruptive outdoor activity, including noise, cigarette smoke, hours of operation, and sidewalk signage. This is when the city became aware of the use being active without the benefit of the required discretionary permits, the minor conditional use permit and the director's exemption to the design review permit. The applicant was made aware in July, and they submitted an application for the discretionary permits. In September, a public hearing was held by the Director of Community Development to receive public comments regarding the request of these discretionary permits, the discretionary permits of which could be determined by the Director. The Director, since, or at that time, has decided to forward the request to the Planning Commission because of the sensitivity in the community. There were about 9 members of the public who spoke at that public hearing. The plans were submitted, and they include an outdoor patio area with the Tivoli lights, seating up to about 35 customers, and 3 couches for what's called sofa seating, 4 patio umbrellas, and the trailer. The hours of operation are consistent with what I mentioned at the beginning. The wine bar shares the neighborhood with residential uses. The single-family residential uses adjacent to the south are not permitted in the C1 zone, the zone that this site is in. Therefore, they're considered legal non-conforming. The multifamily residential development that's on the north is adjacent to the site, is in the village mixed-use zone, which is permitted in that use. In that zone. The intention and the mechanics of a minor conditional use permit is to provide conditions for the use to maintain a compatible environment with its surroundings. There's an attached resolution in your packet, and it includes conditions which include informing the applicant of the prohibition of smoking in public places, requiring outdoor music to be non-amplified, and also maintaining hours of operation, among other conditions. If upheld, the conditions should provide some equilibrium and balance for the mixture of uses in this neighborhood. Per the code, on-site parking is a requirement, and it's also to be evaluated when there's a change of use, which is now. So parking for a mixed-use development, as this is, with the residence on top and the commercial use downstairs, is determined by the review authority through the design review permit process. The code includes that the commercial zone is applied to areas that are suitable for development of mixed-use residential and commercial land uses that support pedestrian and other alternative means of travel. So although the Planning Commission is charged with determining the appropriate parking for the site, it might be helpful for you to know what the individual parking would be if this were not a mixed-use project. The code requires individual parking. There would be 10 spaces for the commercial use and 2 spaces for the residential use, one covered and one not because of that 1995 approval by the Planning Commission. Therefore, there would be required a total of 12 spaces. However, as a site with a mixture of uses, the code provides an alternative under a shared use parking standard, where the wine bar would be required 6 spaces and the residence 2 for a total of 8 spaces. The shared use parking standards require the applicant enter into an agreement with the city that would be recorded with the office of the county recorder. The agreement would require that the parking be operated on a non-exclusive basis, open and available to the general public at all times. So staff is recommending approval with conditions that are provided in your packet, as mentioned in my presentation. And one of the conditions in there, or one of the things that we're recommending approval of, is to eliminate the previous requirement by the Planning Commission to have one of the residential parking spaces covered.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that last
I'm
part.
sorry. In 1995, the Planning Commission had required that one parking space be covered because the standard.
There aren't any there now.
Correct. And so what's in this recommendation is that the Planning Commission eliminate that requirement and that there be no covered parking required.
Okay. That's it?
That is it.
And Lucas, you wanted to,
That concludes her presentation. I just wanted to add a couple pieces. I was actually going through this. She covered pretty much a lot of the things that I was going to say. However, I just wanted to make clear so there's 2 different applications or permits up for discussion tonight and consideration. The first is a director's exemption, and that's covering 2 pieces. One is the alcohol, or the beer and wine in this case, and the second is the Tilley lights. We've got a provision that requires outdoor Tilley lights within commercial or manufacturing areas to require a director's exemption. So both of those aspects are covered under the director's exemption, and then the second is the minor conditional use permit, and that really is addressing the outdoor dining facility aspect, and then the opportunity or for consideration by the commission, the reduction in parking requirements that are being considered tonight as well. Typically, both of these are handled at the director level. However, when the director hearing took place, that's when it was really kind of understood, or I observed that there were quite a few individuals that were concerned with this use. But there was also, we also saw the community that was in support of it. So seeing that and seeing the history of this site dating back to, as you can see in our record, 1995 or even 1989 when it first started, There's certainly a history to it. This area is certainly sensitive, being in the C1 with VMU surrounding it. The C1 has quite a few non-conforming uses. I know I've talked to the community, and this is something that we've talked about at the general plan update level as well, in terms of this use potentially ripe for further discussion and in terms of its future. So I wanted to bring that to the commission's attention, but also to identify that this is typically handled at the director level, but I have the discretion to bring it to commission, which I have.
Okay. For the edification of the folks that are in the room here, presumably most of you talking about item 3 when that time comes, and for those out in TV land, the way we handle these agenda items is first the staff presents a summary of the item. Then the commission has an opportunity to ask clarifying questions of staff, and that may come back again later in the discussion. Then we'll hear from the applicant. Then we will hear, and there'll be some interchange probably with commissioners during that period. Then we will hear from public comment, and I have a stack of cards here. I will call people in the order in which the cards were provided to Sherry, who is the secretary to the commission. And at the end of that, we will close the public hearing. That portion when you all are speaking is the public hearing. We'll have to open that, hear from the public, then we'll close the public hearing, and the commissioners will discuss and deliberate on the issue and presumably come to some sort of a decision with a vote. Okay? So, now's the time to ask questions of staff.
Absolutely. And I'd like to also make one more comment. There was a substantial amount of information that was provided as a part of this packet, and that was from the community as a whole. Some in support, some identifying concerns as it relates to the use. I wanted to just identify that, as well as, I mean, we were even receiving public comment up till 5 o'clock tonight. So
I'm glad that we got what we did on Friday because it took a good part of the weekend to read it all.
yep, a lot to unpack there for sure.
Okay. Vice Chair Nolan, do you have questions for staff at this time?
Yes, I do. In the report, I believe it mentioned that a loading parking area was required, and at one point it was maybe eliminated or deleted. Am I understanding that we need to add that back in?
That's up for discussion tonight. I agree. I did
What
see
is-
that as one of the requirements from previous years. Yes.
So that is part of the discussion then, to add that back in.
The parking is up for discussion tonight. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is mixed use, even though it's in the commercial zone.
Correct.
Correct.
And so the amount of parking required
Okay,
is up to the planning commission.
okay.
Right.
So
And just to clarify, staff has identified the parking demand, but that is up for discussion as well. But we provided a kind of a roadmap, if you will.
all right. That's my only question at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bennett,
Question about signage.
your mic.
I have a question about signage. Is the parking clearly marked, where it is, and that it's open for the patrons of?
Is it clearly marked from that standpoint? No. No, and that's where the agreement between the city and the applicant would flush that out.
And is the no smoking rule clearly marked in the areas where smoking has been taking place?
That I would ask the applicant, but I didn't notice anything when I
I
observed
didn't
the
see
site.
any.
I think I saw a picture of a no smoking sign somewhere, but I don't think it was where the pictures were of people smoking in the back.
Yeah, and from a code compliance standpoint, there were points where that was brought up.
Yeah. And then the question is, is it clearly marked that minors are not allowed to be there?
I didn't see that either. That would be a question
There's a
for the
paper
applicant.
sign taped to the front door now.
There is, okay.
But, yeah,
And that's an ABC requirement as a part of their type 42
Right. And how is that enforced? By the ABC?
by ABC.
Okay, not by us, not by the
Not the
by
minor
city.
aspect.
No.
are there any ABC code compliance officers in the area?
Down in Ventura, there is a representative that we speak with on a regular basis.
Okay,
ABC also works with the sheriff's office.
okay. Are sheriff's deputies deputized to carry out part of that function too, or is it just
They're
hearsay? I don't mean legal hearsay, but,
well, they're deputized to enforce the state codes.
okay.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple, Maura, you mentioned the parking requirements would be 10 if it were just a commercial operation. What's the basis for that? Is it square footage of the commercial operation, or is it the number of seats, or I don't know where 10 came from.
It's under the code 10-2.1405.
Yeah,
No, it was based on square footage.
Right.
Yep.
and the square footage being
This
the building and the two patios, one to the side and one to the
Just-
back, or what?
Just the building square footage for, just the first floor.
Just the
building square
building.
So the city code says that one space for each 2.5 seats or one space for each 100 square feet of total gross floor area, whichever is greater, is the city standard, which gets you to 10.
That's indoor seating.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've walked around the property a couple of times. There's a patio to the south side that I would argue is at least as big as the building footprint. And there is one to the west side which is bigger than that. And so we're seeing a request now for how many seats total inside the building, the south patio, let's call it, and the west patio. What's the proposed seating there?
The seating is really only for the interior, but we're looking at it from a square footage standpoint. The outdoor area,
But we're not looking at the square footage of the outdoor area either, apparently.
correct, we are not, because that is under the outdoor dining facilities aspect, which does not have a parking requirement per code.
Okay? So 10 is the parking that would be required for inside seating in the building.
Right, and the code says that it's either there's per seat or per square footage, whichever is greater.
Right,
And the
okay.
greater number was the square footage versus the seating, so that's where the 10 came from.
Okay, and then, but you said the requirement would be 6 if it was a wine bar.
No, it would be 6 based on not the wine bar aspect, but based on the shared use aspect. So using the shared use perspectives within the code, which I think is table 3.5 or 3-5 or
3-5 or
3-6.
3-6, yes.
So that provision speaks to like 6 spaces per 1,000 or something like that.
Right. So that would make you at
6 per 1,000 square feet of the mixed-use facility?
Correct.
Yes.
But the way I think it's referenced there is restaurant as well as other aspects.
so to
Okay,
clarify.
so,
then,
but the
But
mixed
not-
use here is not residential and commercial, evidently.
No, it is.
Is that what makes it mixed use?
Correct.
so for the
All right,
clarification,
6 and 2 is 8, all right,
clarification then for the chairs.
yes.
Under the mixed use standard, if it's not mixed use, then the 10 applies because it's per square
10
foot.
plus 2, yeah.
Exactly. If it's mixed use, commercial plus residential, then you get to 8 because it's 6 plus 2.
I thought the table said mixed use was up to the planning commission to decide.
It is. Ultimately, the DRP allows for the commission, but to make the ultimate decision, correct? Here, we're providing that roadmap in terms of how staff arrived at that determination, which the Planning Commission is here to review and analyze as well.
Okay, but none of the outside seating counts for parking.
Outdoor seating is, 0 in terms of parking
Okay.
requirement.
I've seen that before. It's,
I have a
we need to
question of
work on.
staff.
Please, go ahead.
I actually got two. One is, we talk about Tivoli lights. Is there a requirement in the code that there be a cover to the top of the Tivoli lights?
Yes,
And if so, is the size of that cover specified?
it is not.
It is not.
It is not, but this commission could specify that diameter or circumference, something like that.
Ultimately, the city's ordinance on lighting does apply, so, and controls on Tivoli lights as well, so the commission can then make the suggested changes on the size of the cover.
Okay. Now, there's another thing in that, and I see the word dining used in documents in here, and yet I also have been wondering about, do these cheese boards count as dining, or cheese boards and pupusas count as dining? It seems as if they are trying to avoid being a restaurant. I'm guessing they don't have a fully qualified kitchen for a restaurant.
Yeah, I think it's important that I give a little bit of history regarding outdoor dining. So the code actually has outdoor dining facilities as well as outdoor dining areas, which are specified in the code as an outdoor dining permit within the public right-of-way. When located within that public right-of-way, it requires a conditional use permit from a processing standpoint. The outdoor dining facilities, which is what we're looking at tonight, covers really the private portion of it, not within the public right-of-way. Both of those have a parking demand of 0. You're speaking to
Because the
these-
code is silent on them.
Correct. Right. So then your question is in relationship to the sandwich boards?
No, my question is, we refer, the documents, both the documents as proposed and the documents that you all have prepared and that others have spoken about, sort of use the word restaurant, dining interchangeably, and yet when the permit was pulled originally, it was to serve cheese boards, not sit-down dining from a kitchen. And I was wondering, does that have any meaning to us in the discussion
Is
here?
there a legal difference?
I mean, there is.
Is
some
there?
food-
Yeah. Is there a
some
difference?
Food being
I think
served,
from
but-
ABC standpoint, it has a difference in terms of how the Type 42 works. But in terms of how we're looking at it, we would consider this to be a restaurant by definition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I also note the first page of the staff report talks about the operating hours that Maura mentioned, Wednesday through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And as a part of the packet that we received, there was a copy of the original 2013 ABC application, and it listed different hours of operation, namely, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. Thursday through Monday. And we've added Wednesday and we've taken Monday off. What is the effect of that in terms of the ABC license? Are the hours of operation in the ABC license identical to those in the application for the license, or are they current use, however different that might be, or does the city have some say in what the operating hours are?
So it sounds like either 2 or 3 questions, but I'll sum it up in kind of one response. ABC can certainly identify the location of the alcohol, the hours of the operation that we're speaking about currently. And they've certainly provided that within the issuance of their permit in 2013. That doesn't necessarily mean that the applicant, so it usually gives a broad range in terms of those hours. They don't have to necessarily live within those hours. They can modify those as they go along. And the commission can here as well. I think what this commission needs to be careful with is taking those hours and pushing the boundaries of those hours, because ABC's already established some, I would say, some fairly reasonable hours of operation, given
It was 8
given what we're
hours,
looking at here.
5 days a week.
Yeah.
And the current request is for fewer than 40 hours, somewhat fewer, but not the same days either. And that's why I'm just trying to clarify to make sure that we understand what the rules are.
Sure, absolutely. And the applicant may be able to speak to that as well in terms of why there's a change or a shift in the hours.
And Commissioner Bennett, real quickly though, on the question of dining, the code does define restaurants as any establishment in the city that provides prepared food for public consumption on or off its premises, includes without limitation any store, shop, sales outlet, grocery store, or delicatessen, which would seemingly implicate even the cheese board.
Okay, so we've established the current rules don't count any of the square footage of the 2 patio areas. Does the DRP or the director's exemption, and I guess because you already issued the director's exemption but decided to bring it to the commission anyway, that we're actually voting on the DE, we're not voting on the DRP directly?
No, they're one and the same. I mean, the DRP is one aspect. The DE is addressing it from a director's level. Here, I've instead kicked it up to the planning commission. It's still being identified as a DE, similar to what was done a couple meetings back for another project. It still carries the same symbol, but the commission has been provided the authority to provide a determination, given direction from and information and background from staff.
Okay. I guess that's all the questions I have right now. I have some more when we get to the resolution itself. Any other questions from commissioners for the staff to clarify the case itself? All right, then let's hear from the applicant. Is the applicant here?
Hi, I'm Sue Nay. I'm the owner of Tipple and Ramble, aka the applicant. And I'm not sure if.
I'm sorry, I missed your name, ma'am.
Or Sue Nay Goldstein. And I wasn't sure. Did you all have questions first, or?
No,
Okay.
you're here to tell us what you're asking for and why, and then if we have questions, we'll ask you
All right.
to clarify.
Well, thank you all first of all for your time. I know this is a real good Netflix night, so I appreciate you putting the time. I have been in business now for 8 years. We opened in April of 2014. The idea was to be was inspired a lot by experiences traveling, my grandmother's Southern hospitality of creating a little spot where people could have a bite to eat, a little something to drink, do a little bit of shopping, and kind of create a hybrid space. You know, over the years, we've been very, lucky to, I think, become part of this community. And, originally what was sort of a personal project, I think has become much more of a community project. I think we've hosted community events. We've hosted winemakers to do wine tastings. We try and work as much as possible with local farmers and produce. And we have a small menu, but I think it's a real nice menu. I know that there's been some issues. I think a lot of them result from a confusion of me living in the residence and aren't really necessarily part of the business. And I'm happy to sort of clarify that going forward and correct those. As far as hours of operation, it was to my knowledge that we were allowed to be open till 9 p.m. via the ABC. And a lot of times we'll close earlier because there's simply just not the business. Right now we close at 7 because it's winter and it's about 40 degrees on that patio. And you know, and then in the summer we close at 8 generally because, you know, the weather's nicer and it's more comfortable to sit outside. We do have, you know, people who come in at 7:45 and they want to have a cheese board and a glass of wine. And, you know, to my knowledge, we can stay open till 9, so we'll let them linger a little bit. Again, if that's something we need to correct, then we'll correct it. You know, speaking personally, we've been going through COVID for 2 years. We've been going through the Thomas Fire for a year. All of this has been real hard. I haven't known necessarily everything the health department has wanted us to do at different times. Things have been corrected. We've been trying to make some workarounds, make some adjustments, keep everybody employed. If there's some things that we need to work around again, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to get all the signage up regarding the smoking or the parking or anything that needs to be made around that. That's not a problem. And we've talked to all the staff and we've addressed that. And again, you know, if as a resident I can't have a family or friend member over at 9:15 at night, then I won't. That's fine. You know, I think, you know, some of that confusion has been because this is an unusual situation. I live upstairs in that residence and the downstairs is the business. So, you know, I've had friend over, my family lives nearby. And they've come over for dinner, and it's not really has anything to do with the business, to be honest. It has what has to do with me. So, you know, again, if we can get clarity on those hours going forward, we'll resolve that. And, you know, we've already resolved the, you know, I know there was some issues about the trash and the recycling, and that's all tucked away on us behind a fence. And, you know, this is, I think, you know, everything that has been brought up is a solvable issue, is a issue that we've already recognized and addressed. I do say, speaking personally and from my heart, you know, I originally opened this really as a heart project, but as time has passed, this has really become much larger to me than that, and it's become about this community and being so fortunate to be part of it because, you know, like we've had some tough times here. COVID has been tough. Thomas Fire has been tough. You know, I didn't know anyone when I moved here 8 years ago, and I evacuated with people who live down the street from me, and I count them as my family. I count my employees as my family. I'm very proud to be able to say that they make enough to live in Ojai. All of them live in Ojai. They're all, you know, between 23 and 26, and I'm very privileged to have seen them grow and get other jobs and go on to schools and do all of that, do all the things that they, you know, they started with me in one context and they've moved on. And so, you know, for me, this business is not really now about my personal thing, but it's really about the community that I have been very blessed to be a part of here, and about the employees, small but great staff that I've been able to employ here, and that has meant a tremendous amount. And so I want to thank y'all for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, ma'am?
Do you want to say anything?
I don't know. You stood up. I didn't know if you wished to speak as well, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm Heather Stobo, and I've been working with Sinead to help her get her permits and submit the drawings and kind of be her representative with the city. First of all, about 6 years ago, the city approached Sinead about the trailer. At that time, we redid the drawings, the architectural drawings and the site plan to include the trailer. It also showed the outdoor dining. The city at that point, I mean, there was never a comment about parking, about outdoor dining, about anything permit related. It was all about the trailer. The issue at that point was a question whether she's serving out of it or not, and she was not. So I feel the city here has been in touch with Sinead. This isn't an underground business that she's been running. We've been in front of the city multiple times, you know, not for citations, but to clarify. She was, you know, the drawings went forward and we never heard anything from the city and until recently. And so we've been working with the city to clear up things, to clarify the drawings, to work with like showing where the parking is. On that note, she is one of the few businesses to have such a large parking lot. You know, there's many restaurants downtown that do not have this parking. She has a full lot that is from, I believe, it's 9 feet per parking spot, correct?
We're not answering questions at this point. I think
Okay,
you're giving
so
comments.
if it's 10 feet, there's 90 feet from, not including the handicapped. So there's a 90 feet of just pure parking, and then on top of that, the handicap parking spot. So if that's not enough parking, I don't know really what's going to be. That's on a professional note. On a personal note, I've been friends with Sine and a patron almost since the beginning. I'm a lesbian, and this has become one of the few places in town where I feel very comfortable gathering with my friends and my family. It's, you know, a majority of the people speaking tonight who in support of Sine are gay. It's an inclusive place. It's a place for adults to gather. In early December, the Thrillist actually published an article saying the 5 LGBTQIA friendly destinations to hit up in the new year. Sine was featured with photographs talking about how inclusive her space was. It's, you know, I know the personal shouldn't come into the permits, but it's just, it is a part of it. It is a part of this community. It's, you know, if people want to argue that this isn't like, you know, we actually jokingly call her the only lesbian bar in town. If, you know, if this wants to become an issue of whether it's not inclusive or it's Sine not including people or there's some anger that people feel from this place, you know, it's not coming from Sine. So I just want that statement to be heard.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners? Vice Chair Nolan?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Mr. Bennett? Okay.
Not at the moment.
I don't
Chair
recall
Quill.
anything about sexual orientation in this case. And so I don't think it's a part of what we're deciding tonight. Would you say?
Correct. But I also wanted to reference, I think Heather had, is it Heather? Yes. Heather had referenced parking dimensions. Is that what you were talking about? It's it would be 9 by 20 is what the typical standard space is, yes.
So there's 11 places then. Wouldn't there be if there's 90 feet?
We've counted 9 on site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that including the accessible spot?
No. I've walked the property a couple of times, once about a week ago, and I thought at that time the trailer was in the far back right-hand corner of the property. Did I miss something? Because I was just back again a couple days ago, and the trailer was parked on the offloading portion of the handicap space. Have you moved it, or did I miss that?
It hasn't been moved.
Okay.
And it's actually, there's enough room for the car and the offloading. It doesn't.
Well, it looked to me like the trailer was parked on the blue striped portion of the ground there. That's all I was asking about.
As far as
Because
we
that
were
came up in
told
an
that it
earlier
was
case a
the,
week ago.
as far as
And-
we were told, the dimensions of the parking, the handicap parking space were sufficient. The trailer was originally conceived as basically, because the ABC requires fencing around your outdoor dining area. It was sort of a fencing structure, like, yeah, sort of like a part of the fencing. So that's why its placement is there, if that makes sense.
Oh, it looked to me like there was fencing right next to the trailer that was enclosing the patio.
The trailer is part of the enclosure for the
Okay.
patio. Yeah, if that makes sense. It's a little bit
Right?
hard to describe.
No more questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you for your time,
Thank you, all appreciate it.
and we'll open the public hearing. First up is Brett Nyman, And just so you can be prepared to jump up next, Stacy McDermott.
Good evening. I'm Brett Nyman.
And I'm sorry, each of you has 3 minutes unless we have a problem with there being 50 more cards that show up. And you'll see there's a green light, yellow light means you're getting close to the end, red means you hit your 3 minutes.
Started. I got to start. I'm Brett Nyman, Vice President of the Homeowners Association next door to Tipple and Ramble. I live with my mother Norma, who bought her first home in Ojai 40 years ago, and my husband Brad, who is the Director of Communications at Monica Ross School. In my statement to you, I include many photographs of unpermitted late-night parties and events with amplified music, including live music, pop-up restaurants, smoking in the bar, minors in the bar, which is a criminal misdemeanor for each offense, an unlicensed backyard trailer serving alcohol and sometimes food, and health inspection reports where the owner told the health inspector that the trailer was used only for storage and decoration, which is a lie. Complaints to the police for loud disturbance party at 9:45 p.m. and for drunk in public at 10:36 p.m. This is a business whose posted closing hours is 8 p.m. We never called the police, but I've included a screenshot of a text we sent to Sune Goldstein at 1 a.m. asking her to please quiet down a loud outdoor party with amplified music, and she replied, "Sorry, didn't realize how late it got." This was a weeknight, and Brad had to get up 5 hours later to go to work to be at Monica Ross School. It's not just the late night noise and drunken behavior and smoking, but also the constant talking, music, and laughter during operating hours. Imagine dozens of people, perhaps up to 50, drinking outdoors and sometimes drunk. The obnoxious drunk laughter is the worst. Ha 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 ha! Ha 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 ha! The more they drink, the louder it gets. The support letters you receive say they support the application for an outdoor dining permit, but not one of them say they support the sale of alcohol permit. So you should not approve this alcohol permit because obviously there is no community support for it. The day it was announced that the permit request was being forwarded to the Planning Commission, a homophobic hate incident occurred at 10 p.m. directed towards my husband and me from the backyard bar. A couple with Sune Goldstein yelled loudly, "Fuck you, Brett and Brad, suck dick. Go back to fucking West Hollywood. Move to Palm Springs." Those are exact quotes. The police were called at 10 p.m. and an incident report was sent to city staff. Our neighbor's brave son, who's 14, had just come out as gay, and he was really upset about this incident. So he talked to his teacher the next day, since this happened on a school night. His 12-year-old brother was also really upset by it. Their bedrooms faced the bar. Would anyone here want your children's bedroom to be next to this out-of-control bar? Is that really what you want for Ojai? The owner states she created her business to be like those she visited in France and Italy. Well, if they allow children and smoking in loud, unpermitted backyard bars in residential neighborhoods at a party to 1 a.m., then she should go back to Europe and open her bar there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Stacy McDermott. Next up is Ryan Bosch.
We really appreciate the city's work digging into this strange and fortunately rare case, and the commission for hearing it. It is neither the city's or especially the neighbors' fault that we are here tonight. The only reason we are here is because the owner of Tipple and Ramble has been running an unpermitted bar for several years, and the only reason we know that is because she applied for a full liquor license last spring, which triggered a notification to neighbors by ABC. That set us down a path of looking into this business that, as Mr. Seibert put it, has been like peeling the layers of an onion. Now that we know that the bar isn't permitted and has illegally admitted minors and lied to health inspectors, ABC, in the city, with an owner who has treated her neighbors horrendously when we've been nothing but polite, it honestly feels surreal to even consider its approval. I'm not sure why the city is bending over backwards to approve a bar surrounded by homes outside the downtown commercial zone, especially when it's proven itself to be such a bad actor. I hope our many hours of research were helpful to you in explaining how we got to this backward place of considering the approval of a bar after it has been running for years. If the timeline of this business has taught us anything, it's that we need to be very, very careful about what we approve and where, particularly when it comes to alcohol sales. Once a business has an ABC license with no restrictions on total sales of alcohol like this one, all restrictions fall on the city to set and then enforce. Tipple and Ramble has a license with no restriction on alcohol sales because the owner applied for her license as a retail store with wine tasting. Because she told the city she was a store and not a bar, there were no objections from neighbors to a new store. If she had applied as a bar, there would have been objections, and she would have been denied her license. ABC will not license a new location within 100 feet of a residence unless the applicant can establish that its operation will not interfere with a quiet enjoyment of those properties. There are at least 3 residences within 100 feet, and our quiet enjoyment of our properties are destroyed 5 days a week, every week. Because the owner hasn't been able to run this unpermitted bar between our homes for several years, there are now patrons who don't want to see the business they like to change. But a business is not an Ojai business until it is permitted by Ojai. Our condo buildings and the Gale house on the other side were residences well before the applicant arrived 8 years ago. The decision before the Planning Commission is not about this business, but about the land it sits on. If approved, 315 North Montgomery Street could be home to multiple bars, one after the next. And according to the city's interpretation of the code, there's no limit to the number of outdoor seats these bar owners could add. If this application were denied, Tipple and Ramble could still run as a retail store, or it could move to a more appropriate location downtown, away from residences, and reapply there. Why should we suffer the consequences of this owner's choice to operate an unpermitted bar by allowing it to continue any longer? We're just asking the code to be properly applied, just like it would for any new business, particularly a bar.
Thank you, ma'am. Ryan Bosch up and Michelle Bosch on deck.
Thank you. My name is Ryan Bosch. I'm a 20-year-old gay man living in this community since January 6th of 2020. I'm the son of Michelle Bosch, owner of Circana, located in the main strip downtown. And I've worked for Ojai City Hall in the summer of 2021. I'm also a current Drexel University student majoring in a BA in PPE, Philosophy, Politics, and Economics, and a minor in New Venture Creation Entrepreneurship. This past summer, I attended the 30th annual Ojai Pride Parade, and I find it disheartening and troubling to leave in September and return on December 7th to hear of a hate incident occurring in my own neighborhood. As a neighbor, good citizen, and as part of the LGBTQIA+ community, I believe it is my duty to stand strong against these incidents. Unfortunately, this hate incident occurred at Tipple and Ramble, our neighbor. A patron of the establishment pointed up to my dear Brett and Brad's house, who I see as uncles, and told them to go back to West Hollywood. They didn't hear it. They were asleep. But still, it's heartbreaking to even hear that it occurred. And quickly, I want to address that homophobic statement. I believe it comes with 2 implications. First, that all gay people live in West Hollywood, and second, that homosexuals and heterosexuals should not intermingle, ever. The very fact that this statement was not condemned by the owner is saddening. I wholeheartedly believe that a business established without proper permits, actively avoiding and breaking regulations, municipal code, state and federal laws, and operating in bad faith for 7+ years is unacceptable. I also believe that we can come to a peaceful resolution, and so I call for a complete new design and permit review process to establish the business legally from the outset, and for mediation between the owner of Tipple and Ramble and her neighbors. For restorative justice itself, that must happen. I leave with only one question in mind. Should we live in this community that upholds equal rights and treatment from the outset, or one that turns a blind eye to discrimination and ones that don't condemn it? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Michelle Bosch next, and Janice Gale on deck.
Michelle Bosch is currently sick this evening, so I'll be speaking for her tonight. Good evening to all. My son, Ryan Bosch, is stepping in for me, Michelle Bosch, as I am ill and didn't want to risk getting anyone sick, especially during this time of year. I am a local business owner and neighbor of Tipple and Rainbow, and that puts me in great conflict. I support small businesses at all costs, as I know firsthand how difficult it is to survive, especially during these challenging times. Unfortunately, I live next to Tipple and Ramble and have experienced firsthand their total disregard for following any protocol to hours of operation, noise control, or trash alongside their yards. It has gone so bad this summer that one day on my way home from work, I stopped in and sat down and talked with Sine, the owner. I talked to her about the issues as well as the solutions, from simple things, for example, like moving her garbage cans not against her neighbor walls where it was loud and smelly. We had a very productive and friendly conversation in which we discussed that since she was operating in a neighborhood, it would be well received if she reached out and got to know her neighbors so she could operate more peacefully. Overall, it was productive. I felt great that I was going to see change. To my utter shock, she did nothing. She didn't even move her garbage cans. The cans only got moved when the city cited her. That seems to be the only way in which she responds. She has done a nice job creating a regular following and supportive clientele, which is outstanding for her. I've seen how people are committed to what she has created, and assuming you are a regular visitor at Tipple and Ramble and go every week, if for some reason you don't feel like going on week, you don't, it is of course your choice. If you are at Tipple and Ramble and you're tired and it's too loud, you can get in your car and go home. Unfortunately, as neighbors, we don't have that choice. We had the choice when we purchased our properties, but I, for one, had no idea that an unpermitted bar was illegally operating next door to me. It doesn't seem like she started this way, but as she added more and more seating, cleared away more landscaping without permits, added an RV to expand our operations, included her side yard, started doing special events without permits late into the evening, while just yards from bedrooms and homes, she ultimately lost her way about being a decent neighbor. Honestly, I can't fathom why she is being allowed to continue to operate without proper permitting for so long. The codes are in place for a reason, and I hope you hold Tipple and Ramble to operate in a manner that they initially applied for on their permit, as well as getting their permanent structure RV permitted, along with their landscaping permitted, just like we all do, and to hold them accountable for not doing it as they should have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, ma'am. That was your mother speaking, right? Okay, next up is Janice Gale,
I'm filling
and
in as well.
on deck is Bill Miley.
Janice Gale couldn't make it, so I'm reading her letter. I am Janice Gale, current owner of the adjacent property to the south of 315 North Montgomery Street. My residence on this property was built in 1947 and has been continuously owned by my family since that time. I therefore have a very long and vested interest here in Ojai. I am now an out-of-state owner of this property, and its rental proceeds provide a significant portion of my monthly income. My husband and I are retired and on a fixed income. He was a career United States Marine. In the strongest terms, I am in opposition to the granting of the use permit for the following reasons. One, the use permit would allow outdoor drinking and an alcohol license type 42 for the on and off-site sale and consumption of beer and wine. An allowance of the permit allows this business to run as a liquor store and outdoor bar. Two, my home structure is approximately 2 linear feet or even less from the common property line. The original use was a walkway to the rear and a small grassy flat landscaped rectangle to soften the entrances to the small apartment building. This new proposal puts my home and my tenants right into the action of a business offering entertainment and alcohol sales. 3, the outdoor dining area for this business extends to the meeting of our common property line for several hundred feet, and there is only a low wall approximately 2 feet tall on the petitioner's side. This puts business customer seating within 15 feet of the master bedroom and about 25 feet of bedroom 2, which is currently occupied by a minor child of tender years. This expansion exposes the window of the bathroom, bedroom number 2 on the side and back, the kitchen window, and the dining room window to any and all who are frequenting this business. Serious concerns arise here with this room floor plan placement and the probable noise and light incursion into tenant privacy and enjoyment of their home space. 4, proceeds from 313 North Montgomery is significant and important to my fixed retired monthly income. Loss and/or retention of qualified tenants due to the presence of customers, conversation, possible music background, and other associated business practices would have serious financial consequences for me. In this event, it would require me to seek recompense. My current and my future tenants are going to become part of the social life of this business, like it or not, if this expansion is approved and allowed. This limits the possible number of tenants who want to be living next door to the noise and intrusion of privacy. This will also limit my future income, as I will not be able to realize full rental value in comparison to similar Ojai properties. My insurance carrier is USAA, and upon inquiry, the placement of this business with an alcohol license and package sales will most certainly have an effect on my coverage and premiums. Again, I am protesting the application for Tipple and Ramble, its expansion, liquor licensing on and off-site sales in the strongest of terms.
Thank you, ma'am. Bill Miley up, and Heather Stobo, thank you, is next after Bill Miley. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Then Lila Francese. Hope I didn't that butcher too badly. That's your
Good evening,
drone
my name is-
operating there, Bill?
Say what? I can't hear.
Is that your drone?
Oh, no, that's a Google Earth picture I made and mounted. My name is, good evening, for the record, my name is Bill Miley. I've lived in Ojai since 1968. This helps me focus what I'm doing and what we're talking about. I have 2 reasons for being involved here. I know Sean McDermott, who lives next door. We have very similar kinds of attitudes and values, and unfairness is one of the ones that I'm talking about tonight. And I consider this particular location and the business is very unfair. The second reason I have is when I was involved in public health years ago, I have a lot of experience in public health alcohol programs. Years ago, among the programs I was involved in, I was directly involved in helping set the first drinking driver education program in California. Who benefits from this? The proposal is clearly nice for the business owner and the property owner, but there are no benefits for adjacent residents. What residents lose, and there are many residences within the 300 to 500 feet of this business, is a lot of environmental values. More and longer light, oh, that makes help, lighting up the nearby residents, increased and longer sound, noise intrusions, potential disturbances from customers, patrons who consume more alcohol than they should. Street parking spaces disappearing very fast at times. Having an outdoor bar, this is really important, in a residential zone, that's not acceptable. The weird zoning, it came about, as I remember I've been here for 50-some years, because the developer of this building years ago left it partially built. There was no second story. It was a derelict for years. For city efforts to get it completed were frequently ignored or blocked. I assume the final agreement that created the C1 zone was to give this reluctant owner a chance to put in the building and a residence and a business. The new residence, the 2-story, 4-unit condo building immediately north, came to this planning commission years ago, and it was designed and well accepted. Sleeping, the gradual darkness as the evening progresses stops. The proposed lights are going to light up the whole area.
Bill?
What? All right. Okay, last. Our code does not require any parking, I heard. That's not fair or logical. Since the commission has discretion over approvals for this application, it seems responsible to require parking spaces, up to 14 or so. Anyway, the business doesn't belong here. It belongs downtown, where it's not in a residential area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Lila, and I'm sorry, is it Francese? Francese. Well, I was originally Quilici, so. And next up, Michelle Abbott.
Hello, my name is Lila Francese, and I am a small business owner in Ojai. I own a company called Ojai Home. I go to Tipple and Ramble forever. Before Tipple and Ramble was there, I enjoyed the cooking school. I went to chef dinners in the backyard. This has been a space, zoning-wise, that the community has enjoyed for countless years. I want to say that what I've heard tonight so far, and the people that spoke, are obviously against what goes on at Tipple. But I do want to say, let's do this one first. I do want to say that I want to put in perspective that sometimes people have come into town that we have to wonder why they bought next to a current establishment and are trying to hurt a business that has existed for a really long time and that a lot of people really enjoy and love. I have wine there often with my 81-year-old mother. I want to point out that the people who are having this complaint, Brett and Brad, own an illegal Airbnb in their property. They post it on Friday nights, sometimes Saturday mornings, so they can escape the city knowing and paying taxes and fees on the people that stay in their Airbnb. So this is the moral scope of the people complaining that we are talking about. And to me, it personally hurts because I owned a property with an Airbnb, and when the city made them illegal, I sold my home and bought a new one because I could no longer have my Airbnb. So they enjoy having people call the police, they enjoy complaining about trash services, police services, yet they are not paying the city any taxes for those services, and instead pocketing all their money from their illegal Airbnb and trying to get rid of a lovely, lovely business owner who has had a really hard time as a single woman during COVID to stay open, to keep young 20-year-olds in Ojai employed. So she showed you the posting. This board here is actually when you email them on Friday night or Saturday morning, what they email you. And I want to point out here, their main thing for wine and drink here is they recommend Tipple and Ramble right next door, 135 feet, a 5-second walk, cool vibe, good wine. Then we also have here reviews. They all mention what a lovely time they have on Brett and Brad's patio. No one mentions in these reviews that it was horrible to be next to a wine bar. I mean, give me a break. This business is barely open. It's open a couple days a week for hours, much less than she would have to be. And I don't know if there's a personal vendetta or whatever, but to me, as a Ojai business owner and longtime resident, it really, really, really saddens me. And it saddens me that when we should be supporting our local business owners, that there are people who have moved to town next to a business they knew existed on a block where it is not residential, it is zoned to be mixed use, that instead they are trying to punish her and take away her livelihood. Shame on them. Not a lot of Ojai companies are able to employ 20-year-olds anymore in this town, and we're gonna have a really big problem with help here if we punish business owners who are helping that crew. Thank you.
Let's have one speaker at a time and try to calm yourselves as you enjoy or don't enjoy what the one speaker is saying, please. Michelle Abbott is up, and Lisa Cusoni is next.
Hi, my name is Michelle Abbott. I'm also gay, which is relevant or irrelevant, but I'll talk about that later. But we have lived here 6 years in walking distance from Tipple and Ramble, which, by the way, most people walk to Tipple and Ramble. They don't need the parking spaces in the back. And it's one of the first recommends I have for out-of-town visitors, and also the place I first connected with and continue to visit with most of my friends in Ojai. And I'm very concerned this is a bad precedent to set, and it can affect other local businesses in our relaxed neighborhood settings. These small businesses are part of the charm of this town, and it worries me to think residents can pressure the city and harass a small business to the point we've reached thus far. These neighbors knew what they were moving into. They'd been to Tipple themselves, and not always, but sometimes, yes, a patron or friend might be a bit loud. SUNE's addressed this issue on a case-by-case basis, but that seems to me part of the deal if you buy near an indoor or outdoor business. It's like buying near a dog park and complaining there's too many dogs. So it also seems there's a conflation of the business patrons and the personal guests. And then if the business were to cease, would she then not be allowed to have friends over to her home? And again, I'd like to say this establishment and SUNE are not homophobic. That sounds like one drunk person in an isolated case, and I just can't emphasize that enough. It's a very inclusive, welcoming place. So anyway, the hypocrisy of using Tipple as an inducement for an illegal Airbnb speaks to a very self-serving attitude, and their concern about sound seems to align with the concern for negative reviews on Airbnb. So I don't think we should validate the antagonistic spirit of these neighbors, creating battle lines about code violations on the one hand, while violating city rules for their own gain on the other. It's not community-minded, and it also furthers the concern of Ojai locals that everyone from LA or out of town is going to come in and start changing or taking advantages of our small-town friendly vibes. I'm saddened. The constant reporting antagonism has cast a shadow over Tipple as we think of it as our happy place. We support SUNE and everything she's gone through and done to stay afloat through COVID and provide us with a lovely place to hang out and connect with our families. Please protect this local business so we can enjoy it again. Long live Tipple and Ramble.
Thank you, ma'am. Lisa Cusoni, and then up next is Matthew Schwartz.
Thank you this evening for addressing this. My name's Lisa Cusoni, and I live downtown Ojai, several blocks away from SUNE Goldstein. I've been to her establishment since she's opened. I used to live right across the street from SUNE. And as a person who lives, I just want to speak to, as a homeowner who lives downtown in a mixed-use zone, I often hear from my immediate neighbors, from the school across the street and the children running around, to an establishment just a few 100 yards from us that does a beautiful job on Tuesday evening, where it can be loud, it can be boisterous. People are laughing loudly, which is not illegal, which is a couple that opened a business just before COVID, grew up in Ojai, and do a beautiful outdoor event on Tuesday evenings that many of us have gone to, and we hear it all the time. Do not complain about it. Do not complain about our immediate neighbors who are also a commercial business. And if we did complain about it, there would be something wrong with us. We moved downtown to have a downtown flavor, and noise is a part of being in a commercial zone, and we've been there and been running a business for 7 years there, and now living there 3 years. So the other thing I just really want to say is that the reason why so many of us are here tonight is because of the hypocrisy of the neighbors. And that just does not fly with a lot of us that are here. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, ma'am. Matthew Schwartz. Next up is Brad Hall.
Hello, thank you guys all for taking the time to hear us tonight. I am a straight male. I can't believe I need to state that. But I'm probably one of the few straight people who's here in defense of Tipple and Ramble. I think a lot of the LGBT community is, regulars this space, so I'm pretty blown away by the comments about hate speech. But that's sort of neither here nor there. I think the point is really, well, in my mind, being a commercial builder originally out of Los Angeles, is some of these code questions, particularly the restaurant designation that I know is in question, which to my knowledge requires a commercial kitchen. I haven't seen a grease trap or a hood in this place. There's plenty of parking there and plenty of room for expansion, I think. So that's just on a code note. But on a personal level, I was a transplant here about 3 years ago. I'd say for the first 2 years I didn't have a big social life, but since spending time at Tipple and Ramble, it's been sort of the core of my community. Since being here, and I think it's really a testament to Sune's character as well as the environment she's created there, particularly in the patio, which I think there are very few places that you go where you feel inclined to speak to others, especially being a millennial who's attached to his phone like the rest of my generation. And that this is that environment. It's really a place where you want to mingle with people, people from unique cultural backgrounds who have also come here to start anew and create a new community. And it's really a beautiful place. So I think I just wanted to say that on a more personal note. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brad Hall, and then next up is Paul, is it Gurdu? Please go ahead, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brad Hall. I live at 391 North Montgomery Street, which is the property immediately north of Tipple and Ramble. I live with my husband, Brett, who you've heard about, and his 81-year-old mother. Forgive me, Norma, for mentioning your age. I'm also the secretary of our homeowners association, and I work full-time as the communications director at the Monica Ross Elementary School in Ojai's East End. And I also want to say, excuse any glitter that you may see on me. We have our holiday performance tomorrow, and I've been surrounded by kids with glue and paint, and it's all over me. So I want to begin by saying that it absolutely brings me no pleasure whatsoever to be standing before you tonight and my neighbor, Sune Goldstein, discussing the matter at hand. While I can certainly talk at length about the legal and permitting issues surrounding her business, Tipple and Ramble, I'll refrain from that. I believe that many of the neighbors from whom you've heard or will hear from tonight have thoroughly and thoughtfully covered these things. My voice and opinion tonight is more of an emotional grievance and plea. Prior to our move to Ojai, my husband and I had been coming to this incredible town for more than 25 years, celebrating seasons like the one that we're in with family friends who've lived here and helped us understand what makes this place so special. We moved here prior to COVID to experience that small town quality of life which Ojai is known for, where neighbors know each other, they look out for each other, and they respect each other. I've wanted and worked to have that kind of relationship with all of my neighbors, including my immediate neighbor, Sune, and her business, Tipple and Ramble. But the events of the last several years, particularly the last several months, have made that kind of neighbor relationship that I've wanted difficult and contentious. And now, with the recent hate incident, which you've heard mentioned, on record, emanating from her business establishment in the wake of the civil disagreement, I'm not only sad for myself and all of my neighbors, but now I'm also afraid. And I may hear some laughs in the background, but I didn't live in West Hollywood. I've lived in big cities, and I've never personally experienced that kind of hate coming from 20 feet from where my bedroom window is. And that's hard for me to admit. That's an ugly truth. I'm not saying that Sune Goldstein is homophobic. I'm not saying that she's a hateful person. What I am saying is that after 10 o'clock at night, when people had a little too much to drink, the words were flowing and they weren't nice, and they were heard by my neighbor and my neighbor's son. I will wrap up by saying, I appreciate the opportunity to express my concerns to all of you tonight. I hope that my words, along with those of my neighbors and fellow Ojai community members, will weigh heavily as you decide this matter. As someone who proudly serves the Ojai community every day, I implore the council and the commission, as you make your decision, to really think about the quality of life you wish to support for the members of our Ojai community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Pam Gurdu, and then I have a card from Sam Haman, but it doesn't say what article or what agenda item you wish to speak to, so we'll get to that next.
Hi, my name is Pamela Grau, and I'm the actual owner of the building that Tipple and Ramble occupies.
Grau, okay, sorry.
When I purchased this building, I was told by the city that it was mixed use, that I could not have two commercial operations in that building. It had to be residential and commercial. And the person who operated the commercial business below had to live above. That's what I was told by the city. From what I understand, first of all, I was under the impression that Sune had her permits. I never heard anything other than that. So this is news to me tonight. But in terms of her using the property when the business is closed, why would she not be able to sit in her own patio? Why would she not be able to have friends over? Why would she not be able to drink outside? That concerns me because it's her home. And I think the operation is, most people complain that it's not open enough. You know, she's open Wednesday through Sunday or Thursday through Sunday and closes at 8 p.m. So anyhow, that's from me.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize, I misread your name, ma'am. Ms. Grau. Sam, are you here to speak about item number 3?
Is that what we're talking about? Yeah.
Yes.
I really have nothing prepared, but I came here to kind of support Sune and Tipple and Ramble, and pretty much everything I would have said has been said by somebody else. But I would like to point out that since the Thomas Fire, we've lost, I think, 5 restaurants in Ojai. So our options are just going down and down and down. There are just fewer and fewer places to go. And to have a place that's this supportive of the community and such a nice place to go and such a breath of fresh air be challenged, and to lose another restaurant and bar, it's just like, really why? And it seems to me like everyone who's complaining lives next door. And it's kind of like buying a house next to the runway on the airport and then bitching about the flight patterns. And you can't really do that. And so it just seems like a kind of a ridiculous thing. And then add to it the whole homophobia thing, which is embarrassing because I don't know of anyone who's more supportive of the community than Sune. So that's really, I had nothing prepared, but I just thought I wanted to support her and stand up for her. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sherry, do we have anyone in the virtual waiting room?
Yes, we have Isadora Chesler, who's on.
Okay, Isadora, please unmute and speak to us.
Hello, my name is Isadora Chesler, and thank you for taking the time to hear our feedback. I am here to speak on behalf of support for Sune and for Tipple and Ramble. I've been a part of this community for the past 6 years, and especially during COVID and pandemic times, this has been one of the very few places that we can safely congregate and gather as a community outside. It's a small female-owned business. She has somehow managed to save her business during COVID as well as the Thomas Fire, both being very traumatic events for our community and the country at large. In my neighborhood, I can walk to Sune's establishment, so parking is not an issue. And I think that, as people have mentioned, that is not something that parking has not been something has been prohibitive for visiting that establishment. There are limited options of places to go, and this is one very actually gay-friendly place. I am surprised this has even come up. I myself am gay. This has been a place that's been extremely welcoming, I've found, for the gay community, and I've been able to make so many friends just from being a patron of that business. I think it's a saving grace having such a business available to us and for the community and for visitors to this town. It's safe and it's still open, and I hope it remains that way. Thank you very much.
Sherry, do we have any others, any other virtual speakers?
Yeah, we have Claude Mann.
Hello there, how are you? As you know, my name's Claude Mann. I am an Ojai resident. I'm also a restaurant owner. And over the past 27 years, I've seen plenty of new businesses come and go. And one can generally get a sense whether the new owner is aware of Ojai's unusual rhythm and if they understand the unique interest of the Ojai community. I first met Sune when I lived across the street, directly across the street, around the time she was first opening. And from the outset, it was clear that Sune respects and values her neighbors. She went so far as asking some of us our opinions when making certain decisions around operating hours and aesthetics. And today, I think Sune's approach continues to be equally thoughtful, enough so that it's not always clear whether she's even open or not. There are no garish lights. There's no plastic signboards. There's no thumping music. And my take is that even first-time customers intuit that the back patio is geared for cafe conversation, which we don't have enough of. Groups on the hunt for a livelier bar scene tend to go elsewhere where they can really hoot and holler. Tipple and Ramble works well for a range of clientele, and as a business owner, I'm really aware that in a town of this size, it's not an easy feat to balance the needs of both locals and visitors. The shaded patio is really a calm oasis for Ojai locals who are looking for a spot more subdued than a crowded brewery or a noisy bar or a tasting room. And it's always at the top of the list of places I recommend to visitors who are searching for a taste of the all too rapidly disappearing Ojai magic. People come to Ojai to find Ojai, and more, it's not here. Sune has proven herself to be an accountable operator. She seems well aware that when running a business in a commercial residential zone, the residential side of the equation must remain front and center, or the commercial side will ultimately be unsustainable. She's always played by the rules as she understands them. They're not always easy to understand. She's worked harder than most of us can imagine. And at the end of the day, I think she made Ojai a little sweeter through her talents, imagination, and perseverance. Opening any new business, especially a cafe, my God, it's an act of great faith on multiple levels. You have to have faith in yourself, faith in your community, and faith that one's own city government is going to step up and work in partnership when the inevitable challenge presents itself, as it is right now. All of us business owners are grateful that the city of Ojai has proven itself to be a reliable partner to local business during the past COVID years. And we're just wondering what unpleasant surprise might be around the next corner. But we have faith that the city of Ojai will continue to work in partnership with all of us, and especially with Sune. In my opinion, Tipple and Ramble is a unique jewel in Ojai's rapidly shifting restaurant selection. And I'll just add, as a restaurant operator, that the profit margin, a lot of people see a full patio and they think, wow, they're cleaning up. In the 80s, when I first got into business, it was 12 to 15%. So if you sold $1 worth of food, you kept 15 cents. Today, it's around 6%. So when you sell $10, you get 60 cents. It's not a way to get rich. You do it out of love.
Mr.
And
Mann,
one thing
your
I would
time
say
is
that
up.
if you take alcohol out of the equation, she will not be able to operate. That's the only way she can make a profit right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Annie Cox.
Hi. I'm a resident of Ojai and a patron of Tipple and Ramble. I'm jumping in unplanned, but I just wanted to share. I have patroned Tipple and Ramble since they opened. I'm always there, usually with one friend, maybe two, having quiet conversations. I, recently was there with a friend right around closing time, probably 7:30, 7:45. We were the only two people on the patio having a quiet, inaudible to anyone else conversation. And they were very clear that we actually had to wrap it up and leave. They were very respectful of the hours. We in fact felt a little rushed out, but we wanted to be mindful. They do very much seem to care. And honestly, I've never seen a rowdy crowd at that establishment. It is, as Claude mentioned, a place where people go for a different, quieter flavor. And on a second note, I live in a VMU mixed use zone. I live one block off of Ojai Avenue, behind the Women's Club and what used to be Azu and Ojai Roti and Bliss. And we experienced noise. We experienced lots of noise, and it was part of kind of what we understood life to be, moving to this type of location. And if it's any consolation, I have two small kids. We sleep with noise machines, and it makes a world of difference. But there are things you can do to kind of like soften the edges around living in close community where people have lots of different needs and competing desires. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Sherry, you had someone else? Oh, that's the end of it, okay. We had 3 late arrivals, Sean McDermott. Next up, Danielle Starustka.
Thanks, Chair. So I have heard from many customers, and notably none of the tourists that regularly show up, that they have a great experience having a drink outdoors at Tipple and Ramble. We hear their chatter and laughter. We have no dispute with these customers, even though they do generate the noise that we hear. We have an issue with the bar. Today, I asked the Planning Commission to look deeply at appropriate land use. First, parking is a hot topic at many Planning Commission meetings. It is one of the only ways to manage the indoor and outdoor scale and impact of hotels, bars, and restaurants. Last night's City Council meeting had a long debate over 2 parking spaces for outdoor dining on South Montgomery Street. The parking spaces were required in the end. In this case, we are talking about, per our code, 34 parking spaces for the 74 seats we see with our own eyes on the property and in site plans, with no limit on further outdoor seat expansion. There are 2 mistakes in the staff report in this area, shared use and mixed use. On shared use, nobody can reasonably argue this. If a residential use was present, it could not be counted in any sharing per our code. The term shared use has never been used by any applicant owner in any city document up until this point, including the staff report on September 28th for the director hearing. It showed up last Friday's staff report for the first time ever, solely to justify a parking reduction. But not only is there no shared use, there is actually no mixed use. As we know, the C1 zone does not allow for residential uses. This is the reason why many C1 owners on North Montgomery Street are working with staff today to rezone to VMU. They would like to add residential uses, which we support as this is a residential neighborhood. More importantly, the residential unit on this property was permitted as part of a 2-story commercial building started in 1994, I think finished in 1995, after several Planning Commission hearings. Condition number 4 on that permit allows for the residential unit to be used by an on-site manager for the commercial use. The Title 24 report only accounts for a single commercial occupancy. There is only one single commercial use. There is no shared use, there is no mixed use. Quickly on outdoor dining, obviously nobody has an issue with temporary outdoor permits during COVID. For the land use permit, our code is clear that there is no outdoor dining happening on this property per definition in the code. Not only that, there is no dining on this property at all. So any outdoor dining variant could not possibly apply to a bar, even if in code. There is no dining, there are no meals. ABC has a clear definition of meals. There are just 74 seats for drinking. Finally, hate speech is not something I expect to hear in our neighborhood. If there is any doubt about what I witnessed on our patio, I have photos and an audio recording of the incident. Sune is present. It is not illegal. It was taken from my property, which is not considered private.
Quiet.
This happened while she was on the outdoor patio at Tipple and Ramble, the business, which is not allowed by ABC, at 10 p.m. at nighttime. This was months after the business was told to stop outdoor patio use by staff in July. The city was told about the hate incident, but continues to allow outdoor operation without a permit. Why is this still allowed? This is not a property where rules can be created with a reasonable expectation of being followed. I ask you to say no to permitting an outdoor drinking bar at 315 North Montgomery Street.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Danielle Starustka, and then Leslie Larino? Sorry? Lane. Oh, L-A-I. Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Leslie Lane. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Danielle Stareska. I am currently employed at Tipple and Ramble. I'd just like to clarify that we do have our beer and wine license, so we have the permit for that. So the liquor license we do not have. That is something that seems to be confused in everyone's statements. We've had that since 2013 or 14 when Sune first applied for it, and she has maintained that since. Also, the signs, we also have signs saying no smoking. We have signs in the front, on the patio, on each door, each entrance as well, saying that children are not allowed. So, you know, the signage aspect has been dealt with. If there needs to be more, happily, we can put more up. Also, the fence situation, you know, we could always build a higher fence, you know, not deal with the neighbors being extremely upset about a commercial residence that actually was there before they ever moved, and they were, you know, in favor of in their reviews also for their illegal, you know, business. Also, live music has never once happened at Tipple and Ramble. I'm not entirely sure where these like miscommunications have happened. I believe that the neighbors are misinterpreting Libby Bowl, like the things that go on at Libby Bowl, to be us happening. There's no photo evidence. There's nothing going on at Tipple and Ramble that has ever been with, including live music. It's just not something that we do. And also, every night that I work, we make sure, like I go out on the patio every single night and make sure that the music is not too loud. Make sure that, you know, check around, see, you know, what the energy is in the neighborhood too. And we play soft jazz most of the time. So I don't know. Just wanted to clarify that we do have the permits, and they should be in the packet as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And Leslie Lane.
So I came here this evening, and I had absolutely no intention of speaking. And I've sat and I've listened to everything that's going on. I'm a homeowner within a stone's throw from this establishment. I've been a patron of this establishment for about 6 years. And the one thing that I want to talk about is the noise and the staying open late and the screaming up to whoever is in the apartment above them. I'm the person that for 6 years has been told to leave at closing. I'm the one that's like, oh, just one more glass of wine. I'm the one that would be making the noise. Sure. Never once have I been allowed to stay there, continue to drink, and be disruptive. The ownership has been strict, consistent about those things. If there is noise going on at 10:30 at night, it's the owner who actually lives on the property, who has friends over, enjoying themselves. I have a lovely group of neighbors around me. I have a neighbor to just the side of my house who often has parties. They're Mexican, the Mexican music, it goes on till 1:30 in the morning. They're laughing like this, ha, ha, ha. You get it? Ha, ha, ha. You know why? Because they're happy people. And you know why I never call about it? Because I'm a happy person. And it warms my heart that I live in a valley that treasures that and protects that. I am sorry that this young lady owns this business that, by the way, is amazing. It's classy. She sticks to all the rules that she's asked, and that there are some people who have just moved in, you know, the people who just moved into town, who have decided to try to change the rules for them. But I am telling you right now that for 6 years, I've been ousted out of this place regularly at closing. This is the truth. I had no plans to speak tonight, but I keep hearing all this, oh, people are yelling homophobic stuff. You know what? Maybe there was some friend of hers that was sitting on the back patio during all this frustration and all this stuff she's been put through, who decided to maybe mouth off a little bit and say something to these guys, because it's frustrating. It's frustrating for all of us to sit back and watch all of this go on, and when you're a personal friend, maybe they let their mouth fly. That is not a reflection of the Sune that I know.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. We have any more speakers?
Michael Segal.
Okay, Michael, please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for letting me speak. I too am a resident of Ojai. I moved, I think, about the same time as people have complaints, about 4 or 5 years ago. And I guess I'm just speaking because I've been a patron of Tipple and Ramble for that time. And I just want to speak about Sune and what she means to the community and what she means to Ojai. I didn't know anyone in Ojai, and Sune's was not only warm and welcoming, but she's been the gateway to Ojai. And Tipple and Ramble is kind of at the center of our little community. And it's not even just for me. We can reference, there's an article in the New York Times in 2017 that has 5 places to go in Ojai, and Tipple and Ramble is front and center. What Tipple and Ramble represents for the city is almost priceless. It's above the all-hallowed Ojai Valley Spa. It's been, just an amazing place. It's an amazing place it's an amazing representation of where Ojai is going. And I think it's very future facing. And I will echo with everybody what everybody's saying. It's kind of confounding and insane to me that the racial thing is, the insults have kind of been thrown in there. I'm livid. I wasn't even going to speak, but I just have to come to defense to my friend who's become my friend because of this establishment. I just have to speak on her defense because I've never met anybody who's allowed for such diversity and for such a growth of community. And I feel like she is what Ojai needs to be. And please, everyone, this place closes at 8 p.m. I mean, let's be realistic here. It's not a place that stays open late. You can go down into the arcade and see all of the bars where people are out late screaming and doing and probably yelling racial slurs that nobody would even dare repeat. And so I just think that we really need to kind of keep things in perspective here and just realize that you have an amazing business owner who's brought in so much, just put Ojai in such a beautiful light that it just, all these things need to be taken in consideration. Thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir. Sherry, we have more?
No.
Excuse me, sir, can I, please? My name is Travis O'Neill. I live at 401 Crestview. I moved here about 5 years ago when I got a job at Patagonia, and we first rented our house, my husband and I, of 18 years, because that seems to be a thing now. And the person that we were renting the house from said, meet me at this place called Tipple and Ramble, and then she'll decide from there whether or not we get to rent her house. And we showed up at Tipple, and a lot of the people that you see here tonight were there. And they've become lifelong friends. They've become best friends. Sune is a very close friend of mine. And the one thing that I just want to stress with this is that rules are rules. This is America. There are laws, there are statutes and mandates in place. And that's what we need to stick to tonight. All the personal stuff, and I mentioned it the last time when the hearing was taking place, that I'm not sure how it goes to that place in a place like this, where we're talking about laws, permits, and things like that. If that has bearing on any of this, then there should be some other things discussed in terms of what weighs opinions versus what laws are, because this is America. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sherry, do we have any more?
No.
Is there anyone else left in the building who has not spoken who wishes to speak? All right, then we're closing the public hearing, and we'll bring the discussion back to we three. Let me say first, there are a lot of quirks in the municipal code. Lucas and I and the rest of the Planning Commission have been working on cleaning up a lot of the land use and zoning regulations. They're not all there yet. We are stuck at the moment enforcing the ones that we have unless there's an overriding reason not to. And that's kind of the attitude I think we need to take tonight. Vice Chair Nolan, your thoughts beginning a deliberation here?
Sorry, I needed to unmute. Yeah, well, I tend to agree with the last member of the public who got up and spoke that we need to follow the code, and it's so unfortunate that some personal issues have gotten involved with this. I also wanted just to make a quick disclosure, and this is probably in 2018. For a year, I met with an environmental group at Tipple and Ramble, and I didn't get to meet the owner other than on the phone, but they were very strict as far as when we could be there and that we had to leave at a certain time because that was their closing time. So we met there for almost a year, and it continued to be that way the entire time we met there. So it's unfortunate that some of these other events happened. It sounds like off-hour times. I think one of my questions is, when you have a property that happens to be commercial and also have the residential home on it or lodging, how do you differentiate, or do you? In other words, if they have strict business hours and then the business is closed, but the property owner, the resident, has friends over, family, and has, a get together, like, where do you draw the line of, hey, it was too loud, or they were up making noise past 9 o'clock? So that's kind of a consideration for me. I don't know if it's something we need to put in the conditions of approval or not, but it's kind of buzzing around in my head. As far as the parking goes, I looked on the plan that they've submitted. They actually do have 9 spaces, one which includes the handicap and the striping for the handicap, and then also a wider space at 14 feet, which I'm guessing would be the loading zone. I didn't see the bike parking designated. I may have missed that, so it's something that I think they should put in, especially because so many people have alluded to that they live in the neighborhood and they walk, and I know when I did go there, I did bike. And at that time, there wasn't, I believe, a bike rack. That's maybe minor, but it does play into the parking. The other thing is, and I think I read this correctly, with this minor conditional use permit, that possibly there be the 1-year review. I know they have to renew the permit, but maybe there's more of a review process with that. And I think that might kind of appease everyone, hopefully. Those that come to, drink and eat, the property owner, and then also the neighbors as well. I do want to thank staff for a very, very thorough packet as far as this item goes. And I think it's I read through the conditions and they seem very well thought out. I would say that we'd want to, according to our agenda or our packet, we were looking at the 8 parking spaces, 6 for the shared use or mixed use, then 2 for the residential. But I will say that they had 9 parking spaces altogether, and I would tend to be in agreement with what they've done. I guess one other issue might possibly be, and this would be on the south side of the property, where there's not really a buffer like there is on the north side. They do have the driveway as a buffer between that and the housing on the other side. I'm not sure if that's something that would be reinforced or if it would help. I mean, they're showing there's this 5'6" spacing, I think, between the seating areas. And maybe that's just something we can look at just to, I don't know if we think there needs to be more of a buffer or not, but something to consider. I'll leave it at that for now, and I'm sure we'll do another round or two. Thank you, Chair Quilisi.
Thank you, Vice Chair Nolan. Commissioner Bennett?
I too want to thank the staff. This is quite a docket, and the docket was put together with great care and thought, and I appreciate all of the comments, the letters that have been received by people on both sides of the issues that we're talking about tonight. This is a challenging one because it is one of those things that I think carries some of the essence of Ojai with it, the institution. And yet there are impacts. In trying to read through the docket and trying to look at the pictures and trying to understand what the complaints are, I think quite a number of them are related to special events as opposed to the sort of week in, week out operations of Tipple and Ramble. And as a result, it causes me to think that may be where the real issue lies, not the daily operation, but these special events which tend to run late, which tend to become much more intensive in terms of their utilization. So I don't know the answer about how we deal with the applications for special events at a place like this, but I think that's something that I'd be interested in learning more about and having some understanding of. I did hear both 9 o'clock and 8 o'clock being used. The permit's pretty clear, it's 8 o'clock as the cutoff time, and the people who've been speaking tonight have said that SUNE cuts people off at 7:45 so that there's an 8 o'clock shut off, but I think she actually used the term 9 o'clock. I think we need to get that firm and we need to post it so that if it's not posted, I know there may be signage, and that's where I started. We have to make sure that the patrons know that there is a permit which allows people to be there until 8 o'clock, and again, reinforcement of the other things like non-smoking. And I think there's clearly a breakdown between the neighbors, which is really unfortunate, and because I am hearing testimony that says that there's a strong attempt by the applicant to stay within the rules, and her employee points out that she's been instructed to enforce that herself. So this is a tough one, and I wish it was easier. I can certainly understand why, if the operation of the facility was as it appears to be periodically during special events, it would be pretty intolerable. On the other hand, it appears that it's not what it is on the average week. So that's why I say I'm more concerned, I think, about the special events that are held there than I am about the operation of it. And like the vice chair, I've gone there myself off and on over the years, both to buy gifts at the gift shop inside and to sit outside and have conversations and play trivia with my friends. I can tell you we were not shouting out the answers to trivia. So, but I can see where it is it's a gem in terms of a place where you can go and have quiet conversation and a glass of wine. So. That's it.
Commissioner Bennett, can I respond to the?
Please go ahead, Lucas.
I think it was the use aspect or special events or something to that effect. We have a temporary use permit application for such special events.
Have there been any at this location?
No.
Okay.
So there's a couple ways that could be addressed. The commission, if it's the commission's pleasure, that could be added as a condition, as a requirement moving forward. And you could even go as far as to placing a limitation on the number.
It's tempting to do something like that in one way. At the same time, since just for everyone's edification here and out in TV land as well, there's three kinds of places by the code where people might sit and eat or drink. One is called outdoor dining. That's on sidewalks and other parts of the public right-of-way. Might be in the street. You've seen this, I'm sure, in Santa Barbara and other places where they've fenced off part of the street and people have tables out there. Another part is inside a restaurant building. And the third piece, which is currently undefined in the code, it is, we'll call it an outdoor dining facility. That phrase appears in the code, but only in the sense that an MCUP, a minor conditional use permit, is required, but outdoor dining facility itself is not defined in the code, and currently the director has the discretion to define it. That may change, but right now that's how it is. And my understanding is that the indoor area of this building on the first floor, where there's sale of snack-type foods, I'll call it, I don't mean any prejudice by that, and beer and wine, forms the basis for the requirements for parking, other than the 2 parking spaces because of the residents upstairs. But there's no requirement, and we've seen this in other places in the city, if a business chooses to have outdoor seating on private property, there's no parking requirement that goes with that, because that outdoor seating on private property is not a defined part of the code with a parking requirement attached. Something that I would like to see fixed, but right now it's not fixed. You said, have there been any temporary use permits applied for? Okay. And if there were, what sort of parameters would be put on that? Time of operation and
Yeah,
the
it's
number of
typically-
people expected to be there?
Right, it's typical to put conditions such as time. We get a general sense of the number of attendees expected, whether there's going to be food, whether there's going to be alcohol on site, where those parameters are going to be located at. We typically require a site plan to kind of clarify that as well. And with these, there's usually a description that carries all that as well.
Noise as well.
The city has noise regulations already
Yes.
that should be enforced, I think, whether it's normal operation or temporary use or whatever. I thank Vice Chair Nolan for bringing up bike parking. I didn't see that anywhere in the resolution, and I think we need some of that. We've also had some talk about the south side of the property and a sound barrier. I recognize that the parcel owner can put up a 6-foot fence or wall, but has chosen not to. And that might be something that would perhaps create less conflict with neighbors to the south. There's already a 6-foot wall on the north edge of the property, runs all along there from what I recall from walking around the property. I like the idea of having a periodic review of the minor conditional use permit, which deals with the outdoor dining facility. If that were withdrawn at some point, if I understand it, then this business owner would be restricted to indoor seating? Is that the effect of having or not having the MCUP, besides the parking reduction?
Correct.
Okay. And so we'd be back to the 600 square feet or whatever it is that's inside the building, and whatever seating
Limitation to
fire
the-
marshal puts up with
Right,
there.
limitation to the walls of the building versus the
Okay.
the outdoor dining facility space.
Just as a personal note, I live over on the west side. I don't live in the Arbolada. I'm on east of Foothill, but I hear Libby Bowl music all the time at my house, and I learned to put up with that. I don't have Libby Bowl music or amplified music or live music or parties in properties adjacent to mine, though it would certainly be a possibility because there are properties right adjacent to mine. But we seem to have from both sides of this parcel complaints about noise and complaints about, I'll call it operating hours. I'm not sure that it is operating hours. And as far as the hate speech, that for me kind of comes under the category of don't be a jerk. But I don't know how to legislate that exactly. But I think that we need, because of the volume of complaints that we have in our packet and that we have heard tonight, I think that we need a little, perhaps more close scrutiny of the operation of this business to ensure that it stays within the operating hours and within the noise limits that are specified for a business in this town. It's a mixed use right now, but it's not a mixed use zone. It's a C1 zone. And so primarily the business requirements are those that prevail because of the zoning of this property. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. I would say my personal opinion is that at a minimum, a one-year review of the MCUP would be indicated here. I am also wondering the director's exemption, if I understand this, and without prejudice to anyone currently on city staff, am I correct in understanding that the ABC license was granted 8 years ago, but a city license for this type of business has never been granted and wasn't requested until recently?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So there's, I would like to note to the commission, condition 14, I believe,
Yes,
speaks
14 is
to
one-year review of the MCUP.
right, which specifies just the minor conditional use permit, is silent regarding the director's exemption.
I would not be opposed, in fact, I would favor a similar review of the director's exemption if that is legal. And I'm asking the city attorney right now if that is legal. I am not proposing that we clamp down any harder on this business than we do on any other business in the city, but I'd like to see how the performance is over the next year, both in terms of the MCUP and the director's exemption from a DRP. Is that legal?
So the commission could simply ask that the DRP be reviewed concurrently with the MCUP.
Okay. Also, there is, and this is questions for staff now, section 10-2.1305 of the code deals with termination of non-conforming uses. And my question for staff right now is the current operation of Tipple and Ramble a non-conforming use in any sense? Operating hours, sales of alcohol out of the RV, which is a contested issue at the moment. Some say it's happened, some say it hasn't, or blocking the handicapped space. Are all of those, or are any of those non-conforming uses?
No, not non-conforming.
Okay. Okay. I think I have. The floor area inside the structure you said was something like 600 square feet? Was that right?
No, it's just over 1,000.
Just,
The
just
square
over
footage-
1,000.
The square
Okay.
footage of the first floor.
And the parking then was six spaces per 1,000 or
Ye-
thereabouts?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I have a couple of questions about technical things in the resolution itself, but that's the last of my questions for the moment. Yes, Vice Chair Nolan, please go ahead.
Yes, this is a question for staff. During regular business hours, is it per code that this operation could actually have, like, say, portable barbecue or some sort of an event during regular business hours out on their outdoor dining areas? In other words, not just single customers coming in, but something that's planned for a certain amount of people, et cetera. Similar to a special event, but during regular business hours.
Yes, but they would, if it's
They
within
legally can do that as long as it's within the hours.
within the hours, yes. If it's
Okay.
specific and unique in terms of inviting specific clientele, that's where the discretion would be a temporary use permit would be required to clarify some of the parameters that we were talking about earlier.
So if I understand you correctly, even if the event was during the regular business hours, they still would have to get a temporary use permit?
Yes, but it depends on the context of what we're talking about here in terms of,
Mhm.
if they're inviting, like I said before, inviting specific clientele, closing it off to regular business, things of that nature would have it steer itself into a temporary use permit.
Right. In addition to if they wanted to do something off their business hours, they would also have to go for the temporary use permit, obviously.
Right. Well, I think we need to be careful with the hours of operation beyond what, for instance, ABC has specified. Anything beyond that would still need to be curtailed through ABC, especially if they're doing alcohol associated with that.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. So if I understand this correctly, basically any business operation that they do has to fall into the ABC hours. In other words, I don't know if off the top of my head, the ABC did go to 9 p.m., but let's just say we're saying their business hours close at 8. They couldn't do anything at 10 because they would be exceeding the ABC license law.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you for making that clear. Appreciate it.
The ABC hours, I believe, were Wednesday through Monday.
They set a ceiling.
Or no, it was Thursday. It was Thursday through Monday, noon to 8 p.m.
Okay, noon to 8.
And that's why I asked, is the current set of operating hours that's shown on page 1 of the admin report, is that non-conforming?
Right.
Because there are Wednesday hours there. There's nothing listed past 8 p.m. and not on Monday. And I don't want to pick too many nits here, but I want to make sure that everybody understands what the rules are and who has to comply with what. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, the hours of operation I'm seeing here are Wednesday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday, 8 p.m., noon to 8 p.m., and then Sunday from 8 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Noon to 6 p.m.
Noon to 6 p.m. on Sundays.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're identifying that they're not open Monday, Tuesday.
Right, which is slightly different from the ABC license. That's all I'm asking. What is the precedence and preemption of this statement versus the ABC license?
Yeah, the stricter of the two standards always rule. So if ABC has a wider window or is casting a wider net in terms of hours of operation, but the hours of operation through the city are tighter, the stricter the two standards would rule. So the hours of operation would rule.
Okay,
so
we could substitute one day for another, but if the hours are shorter, that's
and I think it's important to also note
acceptable
that
change.
Right. The city constantly is working with and in conversations with ABC regarding these uses as well. So
And
okay,
as I mentioned, ABC sets a ceiling, and so city can, or sets a threshold. City can go below that threshold and limit as needed.
right, yeah. Well, okay, I personally don't have a problem with the operating hours that are listed on page 1 of the staff report or the admin report. Can we make those hours of operation part of the conditions of approval? Oh, it is. It's number 4.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I did have one thing on the resolution, page 2, the last whereas paragraph, subparagraph 1. It talks about impairing the integrity and character of the village mixed-use zoning, and currently it's C1. It's not VMU.
Right, we can correct that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and
Chair,
I can appreciate the contributions to the community that we have heard about from patrons of this business. I have also heard complaints about operations outside of nominal operating hours and loud noise, and I think we need just to keep a closer track of all of that, and this is why I would like to see condition 14, page 5 of the resolution, expanded to include the director's exemption from design review.
and so
And so I would move to amend the resolution in that instance, to add the 1-year approval and review. Instead of saying this MCUP is granted for 1 year, I would like to see the MCUP and the director's exemption from design review permit granted for 1 year, and applicant required to apply for a renewal of both at that time. Is that legal?
yes,
It requires a vote by the commission.
Correct.
I just want to make sure it's legal.
correct. And as we sort of talked in the past, and when we're making, it seems like there will be multiple amendments here to the resolution. So I would recommend.
Yeah.
I think, and just better, I guess, to guide the commission right now, unless there's no further additions, I've heard so far the amendment to number 14. I've heard commissioners talk about requiring a TUP for all uses outside of the regular operating hours or any uses involving large events, or, and again, I'll leave it to Lucas, the exact language as to what the TUP would be required for. And then I think there was a mention of a fence or wall on the south side. So
my personal recommendation would be that something be done to create some more of a sound barrier on the south side of the parcel. But that's just a suggestion at this point.
So
I don't know that it's legal to require it.
So the commission can require the applicant to mitigate sound on the south side as part of the
Okay.
MCUP.
But the neighbor to the south
Yes,
can do that themselves.
they can.
I mean, if they have a problem with it,
They can.
They can mitigate it by putting up a fence up to 6 feet tall.
Yes. So it's either the commission can, as a condition of approval, require the applicant to do it, or it can stay as is. But the neighbor, nothing is stopping the neighbor from doing it. You're right.
Right. And we don't know that the neighbor would actually like to have it. They may,
Right.
you know.
The sound of it was to me was that the neighbor would like it to be quieter, but how that's achieved and by whom is up in the air at the moment.
My concern is that I think they were describing that the building was actually just a couple of feet from the lot line, and a fence was put on the lot line. It might diminish the amount of sunlight going into the rooms there. They may not want it.
May not want it, okay. All right. So we've seen just an errata in the recitals. And
The one that I didn't see or hear at this point, and I believe it was to Vice Chair Nolan, is bicycle parking, which hasn't been
Right.
specifically identified, but certainly could add as a condition to address.
There are
moving forward.
standard bicycle parking requirements for
Correct.
commercial establishments, I believe.
Correct, there are.
Oh, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead, Vice Chair Nolan.
Yeah, this would be number 17, condition 17. I'm not sure if we need to say this or not. Maybe we need to discuss this, but this is the parking agreement for 8 uncovered parking spaces. I did mention that on the plans that were proposed and that are in our packet, there's actually a total of 9. I don't know if that's including or excluding the ADA parking when they say 8.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that needed to be changed to 9 or not, and that just made
When
me.
I walked the property, I thought I saw 9 spaces plus the blue marked space. But
Yeah, and I just
I'm
didn't
not
know
sure
if
about
that
that.
needed to be changed or just explain that to me, and maybe it does need to stay at 8.
Yeah, I'll clarify that. So the 8 is what is required by code. The
Okay.
the requirement actually is
Well,
for all
what's
park.
required by code is whatever we decide.
Well, that's true too. That's
Right.
true. It's the commission's pleasure at this point. I would also mention that even though it's identifying 8 spaces, it's really all of the spaces that are identified on site. So it
So
may
that would
be,
be 9.
yeah, it may
Okay.
just be better to not necessarily identify a number, but to identify that the uncovered required on-site parking is to be.
If we don't identify a number, then spaces could be used for other things and wind up with fewer than the required number of spaces.
That's
It's a
true
good
too.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with putting 9 in place of 8 in condition 17. I'm wondering where, can you give us a quick answer as to what sort of bicycle parking is required?
It's not necessarily a number per se, but they need to provide some sort of on-site bicycle facility. So I don't think there's one currently on site, not the one, not
didn't see
that I
anything
saw,
like
but
that, no.
there may just be people parking and chaining it to something on
Yeah.
site. But we can work with the applicant in terms of locating that.
Can we just add a condition 18 to say the applicant shall provide appropriate bicycle parking on site? And
Yes.
they can work with you to get that done?
Yes.
Okay,
Good. Yeah.
acceptable to everybody? Well,
Yes.
I guess I would recommend that the commission simply say that, sorry, my apologies. I would recommend that the commission simply, with respect to bicycle parking, say that the applicant provide bicycle parking facilities as required by section 10-2.1410 of the municipal code, and work with staff on the provision of those biking facilities.
that sounds good. Yeah.
That sounds good.
So we have bicycle parking, we have, as a potential amendment to the resolution.
Yes.
We have that knit in the recitals. We have maybe changing 8 to 9 in condition 17. And with regard to condition 14, do we or do we not put the director's exemption also on a 1-year review?
I agree that we include it.
I can
Okay.
throw both on.
Yeah.
If there's commission consensus then on all of those suggested amendments, then
And we
Yeah.
can just make a single motion for the resolution as amended.
as amended.
Okay.
Correct.
I have one last question of staff, I think just one last question. With temporary use permits, when exactly are they required? I mean, we're talking here about, the only thing that's been mentioned that I found with regard to a city permit is for alcohol and for the outdoor dining facility and for the Tivoli lights and for the parking. Nothing about food. Is this place a restaurant or is it not? How does the city recognize this establishment as a restaurant that serves alcohol, or is it an alcohol business that serves snacks, or is there a difference from the city's point of view?
I think the definition that the attorney had read earlier about it being a restaurant has it fall within the restaurant parameters for the
Okay.
city
Pursuant to
code.
Title
I want
V.
to I don't necessarily want to dive into that, but I want to stay on task here with the temporary use aspect.
Right.
Typically with a temporary use, it's uses that are outside of the parameters of what have been identified as uses for that specific site. So, for instance, if for whatever reason that use ended up wanting to do some sort of a carnival or a farmer's market or something that's outside of the typical uses that you would see as it relates to
Outside of typical restaurant that serves alcohol uses.
The code is actually quite ambiguous when it comes to temporary use permits.
Once again, yeah.
The section 10-22202 says that temporary uses are allowed subject to the issuance of a temporary use permit within any non-residential zoning district. So that includes the ones that this code specifically spells out. Requires the TUP include Christmas tree lots, Halloween pumpkin sales, arts and crafts exhibits, carnivals, circuses, concerts, fairs, farmers markets, festivals, outdoor dining, or outdoor entertainment, outdoor entertainment, sporting events, rodeos and rummage sales, car washes, emergency public health and safety needs / land use activities, and similar temporary uses which in the opinion of the director are compatible within the subject zoning district and surrounding land uses.
Okay,
That's
so
section
some different type of business use.
Exactly.
On a temporary basis,
That,
okay.
That section E is kind of what would apply here.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I did have one more question. We had testimony tonight that neither outdoor amplified music nor live music ever occurs at this place. And I'll take that at face value.
I don't think so.
Is
I
that
don't think
not what
was-
we heard?
That's not what I heard. What I heard was that amplified music, meaning amplified live music, does not take place. But I also heard that there is music that is piped in there that is pre-recorded.
Right.
Music. So
I thought I heard that live music was not part of
That-
the offerings.
Right.
As well.
That's what I heard. But I also heard someone talk about having to turn up the volume or down the volume on the jazz that was put back there. So.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we ought to add to condition 13, which says outdoor amplified music is prohibited as a part of this approval, if we should add and live music.
That's permissible.
Since we've had testimony that it doesn't take place, putting the restriction on doesn't make any extra burden on this parcel owner. Yes, Vice Chair Nolan.
Yeah, so Chair Quillisi, if we added live music, then they wouldn't be allowed to have, say, acoustic, like an acoustic guitar player or something similar. So we're just saying no I mean, if you said, I think the amplified is the key word here. Like if we, I don't know that we should add the live part. Or in general, are we all saying we don't want any music? Because live music could be acoustic where you don't have it amplified.
I agree the amplification is what's going to cause
Yeah, that'd be
a
issue,
problem for the neighbors.
Right.
As written, that would also pick up live amplified music. It just says amplified music.
Correct.
So it's the broad definition.
Outdoor amplified music includes
Live.
live amplified music.
Yes.
Right.
It's
So-
the inclusive definition.
Okay, as
Yeah.
long
So
as
I don't
everybody
think we need to-
understands that that's what the phrase means.
I think that the idea of amplified music. I mean, if somebody is piping out some
Yeah,
some,
if there's a source inside the building and there's a
Right.
speaker outside the building, you've amplified it.
that's correct.
to get to the speaker.
That's correct, and I'm not seeing any in the correspondence or the testimony that the amplified music that we're talking about there, which may be relatively quiet during the operating hours that are allowed, is the problem. It would be if there was amplified live music, a band, if you will, not unamplified acoustic music, or even, yeah, it's so. I think
right, so
this is I think the wrong way to solve the problem is calling out the term outdoor amplified music.
Okay, and what would you suggest? What would you suggest we call it? I'm with you in trying to find the right words so that we're not putting an undue burden on the business,
Yeah.
but we're also pacifying the neighborhood, if you will.
Well, I heard that the business routinely plays music outdoors from inside,
Right?
if you will, or maybe
I think I heard
locally.
that, yes.
And that is a routine part of what they have, and so we don't want to prohibit that if we're not hearing complaints about it, and it creates an enhanced amenity, if it's not bothering the neighbors and keeping them awake. It was not on the list of things which were keeping people awake. The question is, and again, the operators said they do not have amplified live music there.
So
If you add the word live
I'm
to
still
outdoor amplified live music is prohibited, as opposed to outdoor amplified music. It's the
Okay.
it's the
Here,
band,
Cozy?
it's the loud band that
yeah.
you're
Okay,
concerned
Vice Chair Nolan,
All
can
right,
you
yeah,
break this
so-
log jam?
Yeah, well, to me, you could have live music or you could have it piped in, and you could blast either one as loud as you
That's
want.
true. Wow.
So it just
And
to
we
me,
have
I
rules
think-
about DB's audio, yes.
So I think, so I guess it gets back, and I know we've had this on some other projects that we've looked at. Do we, if you look at number 12 above, there's the restrictions with the decibels. Is that enough? And do we let them have the amplified music as long as it's not too loud? I'm with you. I want the business to, have the ambiance. I want them to succeed, but I also want the neighbors. I want it to work for the neighbors. I'm looking for the balance, as I think we all are. And I'm just wondering, is that enough? Number 12, and we've striked number 13. Because really, live
That's possible,
or piped in,
certainly.
it doesn't
The other part
matter.
of it is
It's how loud you play it.
If they have a cutoff at 8 o'clock,
Right.
an absolute cutoff at 8 o'clock, and they live with the 55 dB
Right.
decibel level that we were talking about at our last meeting, and I don't know if that's adequate. It would seem to me that what we need to have is an assertion that that they're allowed to have music, amplified or unamplified, until their hours have expired at 8 p.m., after which they will have no music.
Right, I think that's the right approach.
I think it is too.
It's not just the dB levels that are in 5-11.04, but modified to restrict those to the operating hours, which would be noon to 8 or noon to 6,
Yep.
depending on the day.
Yep.
Can we do that?
Yeah, if it's a condition, yeah, as a rule.
We would modify condition 12, instead of saying the maximum level is between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m., it would, and the other from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. I'd like to see 65 dB during operating hours and 55 dB during non-operating hours.
Yes, that would be fine.
Would that,
No,
We haven't dealt with 13 yet, Jamie.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking about 12.
Yeah, okay.
And the applicants, with it says that the noise standards will run till 10 p.m.
Right, and I'm saying if we
But
took out those times that are in there
and replace it with their business
and
hours.
say
The
65
operating hours.
dB during operating hours, as noted in number 4, and
Right.
55 dB during non-operating hours, would that work for you?
And is the 55 dB for the use of the resident of the second floor of the
Correct.
house? Because theoretically, they're not operating the business after 8 p.m.
But the noise standards and limits are generally applicable, so
Right,
they have to abide by these anyway.
right. And, or let's just say they had a temporary use permit to do some kind of an event. Well, I don't know if they could, I guess they could do
Okay.
the.
Or as otherwise provided in a temporary use permit? So if they wanted longer hours at
I don't know if-
higher levels, they'd have to put that in the TUP?
I mean, that would be because you're looking at a one-off condition, right? In
Right.
terms of the
Yeah.
temporary use permit, so you would be looking at it from a kind of a very unique kind of in-the-box kind of situation. Whereas what we're looking at here, these hours of operation and the dB that we're talking about here, that's pulled directly from the code. If we're applying
Yeah.
if we're applying a stricter standard, that's completely within the parameters of this
And
this permit.
I'm just wondering if we have 65 dB until 10 p.m., but supposedly the business has shut down at 8. But perhaps it should say the business shall comply.
Well, the
So
65.
the applicant in the private home has the basic rules, and the business has noise limits that depend on their operating hours?
That's what I would think, yeah.
Well, that kind of makes sense. I mean, hopefully this won't happen and they comply, but if there is an issue and somebody files a complaint, they have the right to do so. I'm hoping that doesn't
Sure.
happen, but I think we're going in the right direction here. And I do agree with both of my fellow commissioners, your last
So-
statement.
Yeah, I understand that condition 12, as it's currently written, is a standard condition for anybody, anywhere in the city.
Correct.
If we added to that, that the business had to comply with
Yeah.
those same limits either during operating or non-operating hours, then this leaves the resident, the second floor,
Mhm.
with no more and no less allowance for behavior than any other resident of the city. But if we clamp down on the business and say during operating hours and non-operating hours, then we have a basis for judging performance as we go forward.
That would be permissible as a condition.
Yeah, that could work.
But we're talking here,
I know.
we're talking here.
Is what you're saying, that you're allowed 65 dB up to the time you shut your business down, at which point the sound goes off. You're not gonna leave
Yeah,
the
but-
music playing after the
But
business.
in your residence,
Yeah,
if
I
we don't,
agree.
if we don't change 12,
Yeah, I agree. You should split the residents off from
It's treating the residents from the commercial business differently, which is
Yeah.
what I think what the commission's intention is.
that's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay, and I think your amendment does that.
I think it is too, Steve.
Okay? Do you have the words that need to go in there? Or maybe we could make, since there seems to be still some problem with number 13, I don't know.
13 is one of the suggested, was put in by the staff. So the words, and again, I think Lucas and Maura were keeping track here, but I think 12 could be simply modified to say that the applicant shall comply with the city's noise standards for the commercial business per the Ojai
The
Municipal
applicant
Code.
as a resident.
The applicant shall comply with the city's noise standards for the commercial business, and then put those language in, and then add another language saying that the applicant, the residential portion of the building shall comply with.
With 511.04.
Yes, that cleans it up quite.
Yeah, and covering the hours of operation, which were
Covering the
we've
hours
talked
of
about
operation
before.
that are in condition 4.
Yes.
Correct.
So, that
All right,
that-
let's go back to 13 now. What did we come to? Outdoor amplified live music?
So there was a
I think we would all agree if there's a speaker out on the patio and there's a CD player inside the building, we've amplified music.
So-
And it's outdoors. So I don't think we can ban that. Vice Chair Nolan, you have a thought?
Yeah, I had mentioned this earlier. It sounds to me like we strike the language that we have here in 13 because as long as they abide by the decibels, does it matter if it's amplified music or not? Right? If they're not exceeding that,
Yes.
does it matter if they have a speaker or not, whether it's live or it's being piped in?
I would agree. The pure way to do this is treat it by decibels and drop this reference
Exactly.
to
That's what I'm
amplified
proposing.
or live music or just.
Yeah.
So if the commission is, what the commission is suggesting then is simply, if you eliminate condition 13 entirely, then the default is condition 12, which includes the decibel requirements, which already generally apply.
Yep.
And so you're not treating.
Or 13 could be where we put the conditions on the business and its operating hours.
Yes, either
Correct.
way, either way.
Correct.
And so you're not treating music as a noise any different than
Any
other
conversation
noise,
or
yeah.
what other.
Okay.
Exactly.
And we were gonna add 18 had to do with bike parking.
Yes, the
Correct.
standards as required by the code.
Okay. So we have 12 will stand, 13 will be the business.
No, just be eliminated.
Well,
Well,
13 as written will be eliminated and substituted with the language referencing
about
the
the
business.
business and its operating hours and decibel
And the
levels.
residents.
And 14, were we in agreement to add the director's exemption in the one year review?
Wouldn't it be the design review permit in
Sorry,
our case?
There is no design.
There is no design. It's the revisiting the director's exemption from the design review.
Right. It's the
Okay,
director's.
correct,
Yeah.
correct,
Right.
agreed. Yeah,
Design review permit is already off the table. We're voting on the director's exemption, not the permit.
So the language then would be that this minor conditional use permit and the director's exemption from the design review permit is granted for 1 year.
Right.
And then the applicant shall apply for a renewal of this minor conditional use permit and director's exemption from the design review permit to be considered by the planning commission for its continued use. So simply adding that language.
correct, agreed.
That works for me.
Me too.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
You have another one?
Excuse me.
that-
I have another one. Number 6, all furnishings must be maintained by the applicant in good condition without signs of deterioration. It seems to me also the landscaping should be maintained by the applicant in good condition without signs
I
of
don't know that we can put without signs of deterioration because the first time you touch something, it might be deteriorated.
Well,
But
we-
maintained in good condition works for me.
That's fine.
It's
That's fine.
no more or less subjective a measure, I think.
I think we've had, as we've kind of spoken in previous commissions, often broad language is better rather than specific language, which limits the power of the city.
So which is, the broad language would not include without signs of deterioration?
No, the broad language would include that.
Would include that.
Yeah, it's as written, I think. I would recommend keeping it.
Okay?
But this says furnishings shall be maintained, and I'm just saying, landscape.
That's
and
tables and chairs and
Yeah,
fences.
right.
So
Well, maybe not even fences, I'm not sure.
The request is then to add landscaping.
Yeah, the word landscape.
Yeah, so landscaping is covered under MWILO, and I would say to a certain degree, when landscaping does become deteriorated, it can become a code compliance case versus something that would be addressed here.
It's
Meaning we would handle it separately through a separate division.
There's a separate code section, the Modern Water Efficient
right.
Landscaping
Okay,
Ordinance,
fine.
that governs landscaping, and so
Okay.
proper maintenance of lawns.
We don't need to quote every section of the
Fine.
municipal
Yep.
code in
Yep.
here.
because it already applies.
Just as long as we understand that applies.
Yes.
Okay.
Vice Chair Nolan, you're the landscaping and MWILO expert here in the room. What do you think?
I agree with staff that we don't necessarily need to include it because it's normally a thing of code compliance. You know, if they start having invasive weeds and trees die, usually people are notified about it because it's a hazard.
You will be cited by the city if you allow your
We'll be cited.
Yeah, if
Correct.
you allow your landscaping to deteriorate. So
Right.
that's all.
I don't want to go as far as saying that we would cite on landscaping, but certainly we provide notification and looking for compliance.
You could be cited.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you could be if it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with not including anything about that because I know that there's
I am
another
too.
avenue.
All right, so we have 12 stands, 13 has language similar to 12, but restricted to operating hours and non-operating hours.
Correct.
14 adds the director's exemption in 2 places as part of what's granted for 1 year and required to apply for renewal. 17, we've changed 8 uncovered spaces to 9, and then 18 has bike parking as specified by the code and negotiated with the director.
And if there's consensus on all those changes, then the appropriate thing right now would be a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Vice Chair Nolan.
Yes, I make a motion that we adopt the minor conditional use permit, 21-003 and director's exemption from planning commission review of a design review permit DE 21-015. I don't think I need to say more than that, and
Well,
all of the changes that we just agreed upon, the conditions we agreed upon.
All right, so I would say subject to the amendments agreed by consensus.
Right.
Subject to the amendments agreed to.
I had one other piece of errata. This is back on page 1, the last whereas, first line. The title of that paragraph is not design review, it's applicability.
Where is it?
So
I know this seems like picking nits, folks, but this is a legal document
Noted.
when we get done, and I have to sign it. So we have a motion to accept, to approve the resolution as amended.
as amended.
As amended.
Seconded. Okay, is there any more discussion? Very good. Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Chair Quilisi?
Yes,
Vice Chair Nolan?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, folks, you have what you have heard. Go and have a good time and be good neighbors to everybody. Thank you. Ah, great. Welcome back, Commissioner Trent.
Welcome back.
You just disappeared.
Okay.
Goodness.
Folks, we have more business. We have more business to transact this evening. All right, let's move on to item 4. a design review permit and a plan development permit at 302 South Montgomery Street. Lucas, is this yours or is this Maura's again?
This is mine again, thank
Yep.
you.
Excellent.
Sorry, you asked
Let's
Lucas.
hear from Maura.
Okay. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. This is a request for a design review permit and plan development permit to construct a 476 square foot addition and remodel of an existing 722 square foot single-story, single-family residence located at 302 South Montgomery Street. It's in the VMU zone. The project site is surrounded on all sides by the VMU zone, and it's surrounded by condominiums and single-family residences located on east, north, and south. And
West,
there's
north,
an
and south.
Edison substation adjacent to the east. Did I say that wrong?
Go ahead.
Sorry, west, north, south, and then the east would be the Edison substation. The Planning Commission is charged with review and determination of the design review permit, as any exterior alteration to a building in the VMU requires this discretionary permit. The Planning Commission is also charged with review and determination of a planned development permit because projects in the VMU district that are in excess of the basic allowances set forth in the code are required to have, to be reviewed and determined by the Planning Commission as well. And for this request, there is an encroachment into the rear yard setback and a reduction of the required parking. The required setback is 25% the depth of the lot, or 25 feet, maximum of 25 feet, and the applicant is requesting a reduction to 1 foot, which would be keeping in line with the addition would be keeping in line with the existing residence. And the reduction in parking is to have no covered parking, where 2 covered parking spaces are required. The Ventura County records indicate that this existing building was built in 1928. The rest of the site is unimproved, except for there are 3 under 120 square foot sheds, one of which is proposed to be removed. They're turning up the heat for me. Or maybe it's not just for me. But
It's frigid in here.
yeah, I've
The,
been complaining.
the addition or removal of a shed, though, is that part of something we have to decide?
No, I just wanted to inform you that there
Okay,
are 3 sheds,
very good.
but only 2 will be remaining. I want to also say, just for information's sake, that the site had been the home of Phil Harvey for many years until his passing in January of this year. Mr. Harvey was known as a singer and actor, and that was he was a singer and an actor in operas, musicals, movies, and television roles in science fiction movies and westerns. And he was 99 years old, 4 months shy of turning 100 last January. The existing residence has 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a living room, family room, and a kitchen. And the proposed remodel will add a 2nd bedroom and bathroom, as well as enlarge and modify the location of the living room and the kitchen. Single-story, single-family residence has a combination of brick and plywood siding and an asphalt shingle roof. And the existing brick is to remain on the exterior, otherwise the exterior materials would be changed. The plywood siding would be replaced by a 6-inch vertical cedar siding on the northwest and south elevations. The plywood on the east elevation is the largest span of plywood, and that's proposed to be replaced by dark gray smooth trowel plaster. The existing asphalt roofing is proposed to be replaced by a dark bronze mini batten metal roof. There's also a new roof line proposed, and that is shown in your packet. The proposed pitch would remain unchanged. However, the building height is proposed to be increased from 14 feet to 18 feet. The request, there's 2 things that are not always talked about in a presentation like this, but I wanted to mention that there's a tree permit. And the reason it's being noted is because if you visited the site, there is an enormous, beautiful oak tree right smack in the middle of the property in front of the existing residence. And the intention of me telling you this is to assure you that that tree is not going to be removed, and the applicant has gotten an arborist report, the tree is healthy, and any measures to protect it will be, are recommended and will be followed through with during construction.
And the gravel drives all steer clear of the big trees right now.
Yes. A Phase 1 archaeological study was prepared for the site, and the study concluded that no cultural resources were observed during an intensive pedestrian archaeological investigation. And due to previous grading, the likelihood of undiscovered significant cultural resources is low, and no additional cultural resource testing is recommended. The report that we received, however, indicated that due to voiced concerns and the suspected prehistoric site nearby, an archaeologist, the archaeologist who prepared the study is recommending that a monitor be present during ground disturbing activities, and that would be an archaeological monitor. So the Planning Commission is charged with the review and determination of the requested permits and has the authority to approve the project as proposed, or of course place other conditions on it. Staff is recommending approval of the project, and I believe the applicant is here via Zoom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to compliment you on the drawing package obviously came from the applicant, but once again, I appreciate the detail that was in this, and I'll have some comments on the resolution as it comes. Do we have any questions for staff? Jamie? Kathy?
No, I'm good.
John?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, I just had one that I can think of at the moment, and this is on the admin report, page 3, at the first paragraph there. It talks about 10.2.1303, restriction on improvements of nonconformities. And I thought, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but I thought 10.2.1303F said that if you were not more non-conforming, that it was okay. And I may be wrong about that, but the last couple of lines of that paragraph say, or it at least imply to me, that the structural additions have to comply with the zoning regulations, and that's the 25-foot or more setback from the east edge of the property. As I looked at the drawings, I could see the existing building is 1 foot from the east edge of the property, and the proposed addition was 4 feet, which seems to me to be less non-conforming. But is that what 10.2.1303F is really about? Or is it a hard and fast rule that you either meet the 25 feet or 25%, or you get permission not to?
I love that you dive into the code like this. So I'll actually read. I'd want to read F because I know this has come up before.
I'm
but
sorry,
I
didn't have the citation written
no,
out
it is
in front of me.
F was what you're speaking to specifically. It's section 10-2.1303, subset F, which reads where structure is nonconforming only by reason of inadequate setbacks, yard size or open space, structural additions, alterations, or enlargements of the existing structure shall be allowed, provided the additions, alterations, or enlargements comply with these zoning regulations and standards relating to the structures. And in quotations, it talks about building envelope, and it gives examples such as setbacks, yards, height, open space requirements for the parcel or site. The director may issue a zoning clearance in compliance with Article 19 of this chapter, which would allow the new structure. And then again, it's the examples of the additions, alterations, or enlargements to be built in compliance with the previous or existing setbacks.
Okay, a lot of words there. If the existing setback is 1 foot and the proposed setback in the addition is 4 feet, is that legal as it stands, or does it still require permission from the Planning Commission to do that?
In this case, I would see it as permission from the planning commission. This one tends to, when I look at this, I'm looking at a couple different things. One is how close are we looking at the specific standards? So here, I think the building is something like 1 foot or 18 inches from
About a foot.
Right
from
up against the
PL.
property line almost.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a couple issues with that. Aside from that, they're pulling it back. The rear yard setback is something like 20 feet or 10 feet or something like that.
25.
The rear
The
setback
VMU?
would be 25.
It's 25 feet. We're looking at 4 feet here.
Right.
Still non-conforming. This kind of
Yes.
gets into the issue of
Still
it still being
non-conforming,
non-conforming,
less
maybe less
non-conforming.
non-conforming, still requires the PDP.
Okay. That's fine.
In cases like this, it's typically something that we're looking at fairly minor. Like if it's an addition where it's an 8-foot setback and the existing setback is 5 feet, and they want to continue that, that's where we would apply this from a zoning clearance standpoint.
I noticed on
this to me
page-
is not that. This is
Page 4 of the admin report, it says the setback from the property line of 4 feet satisfies building department development standards or requirements. And I think that's because there's nothing flammable on the other side of the fence, probably.
Yeah, that was the other thing that I didn't want to get into, which is the building component of that, yes. That's why we were looking at that 4-foot setback versus 1 foot.
Okay? All right. No other questions for staff? I thank you for the clarification. I thought there was the implication there of not less non-conforming would be okay. Is the applicant here to speak? Tommy, thank you. Please speak to us as the applicant, sir.
His wife
hi there.
Bonnie's also on.
She
Oh,
is.
very good. Welcome to you both.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Terrific. Well, first, I appreciate everybody's time with this. Real quickly, my wife and I moved to Ojai about 3 years ago after losing our home in the Woolsey fire. And my daughter goes to school in Ojai. We fell in love with it. I love that Mara wrote about Phil Harvey. I had the good luck of riding my bike by his property and meeting him and striking up a conversation. And one thing led to another. And he agreed to sell us his property. He then moved to the Gables up Montgomery there. And as Mara mentioned, passed away just shy of his 100th birthday. We're super excited about being there, living in Ojai. I don't know what more I could add outside of what Mara has contributed to that report. So if you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Vice Chair Nolan?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Trent?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Commissioner Bennett? No. Very good. Okay. Thank you for your time. I guess it's time to open the public hearing. If we have anyone currently in residence or waiting in the wings who would like to speak on this agenda item number 4. Sherry?
We have no hands raised.
No hands raised. Okay. Then we'll close the public hearing, and the 4 of us now will deliberate. And I'm sorry, when I went through this over the weekend, I sent a bunch of questions to Maura, and she responded in her usual fast and accurate point. And I didn't bring that list of questions with me, and I apologize for that, but I'm going to get picky about the resolution again. This is attachment A, page 1, refers to a design review permit and plan development permit to remodel the interior and exterior of an existing facility, the residence. It appears in the title and in the first recital, and I forgot, but I think interior and doesn't belong in either place. Is that right?
That's correct. You brought that up to
Okay.
me, and I responded.
I,
It's the
I thought you
exterior.
had, and I apologize for not bringing them with me.
Of course, that's fine, but right, you're just looking at the exterior.
Right. Page 2, the recital there, subparagraph A, there was a missing lowercase a in the citation, should be 2303A8A, and I think Maura made that correction. And that's all I have, and I'm happy with this. I've gone by that property a lot, and this past week, assuming that there was no one living there at the moment, I walked in and walked around the building and took a look at what's there, the gravel driveway and the big trees and the little house that's there. And I thought this would be a fine project and a nice addition to the community. And I apologize to the applicants if they are unhappy about my having walked around the property. But I did. Because you can't see much from Montgomery Street, and from Willow, all you can see is the end of the building, looking over the 6-foot fence, which fortunately I can do.
So, Chair Colosay, I just want to mention,
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your insight and your curiosity. In the future, I would just be careful and we can always coordinate with the applicant to get you out there to do a proper site,
Okay.
like a walk through the site.
Very good.
I'm sure-
I will be careful to do that the
Yeah,
next time.
yeah.
I'll call you and ask.
As the commission's lawyer, that was my suggestion too.
Very good. I'll do that.
Looking out for the commission.
All right. Vice Chair Nolan, any final thoughts?
I'm ready to make a motion, but we can do the rounds.
Okay, Commissioner Trent?
No further questions. Yeah, it looks good to me. Don't have a problem with the parking. Yeah, I'm good.
Commissioner Bennett?
Looking at the renderings, it's going to be a nice little building.
I think so,
I'm very pleased by their choice of materials and clearly a building that has exposed plywood as a covering right now will be significantly enhanced by having proper paneling and other materials used. So I think this is great. I think
Yeah.
I agree with you that the community will be improved by having a nice little building like that. We need more housing, and this is it. So
This rendering in attachment C, I see, part of it looks like regular shingles, page 1. Page 3 actually looks like that what'd you call it, metal batten?
an upstand metal roof.
Yeah, I have to say, we got one of those in our neighborhood, and at first it took a little getting used to, but it's actually quite attractive, particularly in a darker color like this. I think that'll fit just fine in the neighborhood. So, Vice Chair Nolan, you wanted to make a motion?
Sure, I'll go ahead. That make a motion that we adopt design review permit DRP 21-013 and plan development permit PDP 21-002. And with the few changes that Chair Quillisi had mentioned.
With, as amended with errata, yeah.
Exactly, with the errata.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Bennett. Any more discussion? Then Sherry, would you call the roll, please? Yes.
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 Commissioner Bennett.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. That was a little easier.
Very nice.
All right, we'll go on to agenda item number 5, a design review permit
Let's keep the
for
momentum.
construction of a single-family residence including an attached two-story garage. And this I know is more as also, and if you would, please make specific for us what it is that we are voting on tonight and what we're not voting on. Terrific, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Quillisi, and I will be sure to do that. First, I'll repeat that the request is for approval of a design review permit to construct a single-family residence located at 401 East Topatopa Street, and this project is in the Village Mixed-Use Zone, and single-family residences are permitted use in the VMU, Village Mixed Use. The Planning Commission is charged with the review and determination of the design review permit, as all development in the VMU zone is subject to a design review permit, and the proposal that is in your purview tonight is the single-family residence with the attached garage, and there is a second story attached above the attached garage. I think I said that correctly. I want to add what is not under your purview, however, is part of the development and blends well architecturally and material-wise with the single-family residence, is a detached accessory dwelling unit that's at the front of the parcel. So there are two buildings proposed. However, the accessory dwelling unit is not under your purview.
Unless we don't approve the primary residence, then you can't have an ADU.
That's correct. You can't have an ADU unless you have a primary residence.
Right, okay.
So the subject site is a 9,225 square foot site. It's a vacant lot. It previously had 3 single-family residences on it that have since been demolished. The proposed single-family residence would be 1,623 square feet. It includes an attached 2-car garage, as I said, and there is a space above that garage, second story, and as I said, it's intended to be a junior accessory dwelling unit. And then the detached structure is, that is not under your purview, but it is part of the site, would be 860 square feet. I'm gonna give you the feel of the whole site. The project meets the basic development standards within the code and is therefore subject only to consideration of a design review permit. It does not require a planned development permit. The single family structure the single story structure, that is the ADU, is at the front of the site, and it's proposed to be set back 20 feet from the front property line. 15 feet back from that is the single family structure with the attached 2-story garage. The second story of that 2-story element would be 411 square feet. There's an outdoor staircase that leads to that second story. The Ojai Municipal Code includes development standards for new structures which employ materials, colors, textures, styles, building mass, and scale that are compatible with the architectural character and form of the surrounding buildings, and that buildings should be set back from the street consistent with the pattern of the existing development. The applicant was charged with determining the setback of all of the existing structures on the street, on both sides of the street, and then taking the average of those distances, and that's what determined the 20-foot setback required for this parcel. In specific regard to building mass, all projects are required or encouraged, to stair-step elevations such that each floor above the first is set back from the floor below. The uniform building design of these buildings includes a Santa Barbara mission finish, white plaster with windows that are set in approximately 3 inches. All windows are proposed to be aluminum and are a combination of double hung and sliding windows. The second story element over the attached 2-car garage steps up and behind the detached single-story structure as seen from the street. The exterior staircase to the second story includes a north-facing solid wall which camouflages the stairs. An approximately 50 square foot partially set-in covered deck is proposed on the east elevation of that second story. And the roof material for both structures is proposed to be a dark gray Class A asphalt shingle. The project site is at the end parcel on the south side, at the end of a dead-end street. The other 6 structures on the street, that's both sides because it's a short street, are a mixture of styles. The 2 structures adjacent to the west are 2-story, while the other 4 structures on the street are single-story. Per the municipal code, new construction projects with an aggregate landscape area equal to or greater than 500 square feet that are requiring different permits, including a design review permit, require submittal of a conceptual landscape plan. The applicant has submitted that, and what's proposed on that conceptual plan are olive trees, strawberry tree, and other local native plants. The rear yard includes olive trees as well as the ones that are proposed in the front. A decomposed granite path is provided for pedestrian access to those outdoor stairs on that, to the second story of the rear building. There are no new fences proposed for this site through this current application. However, there is an existing 6-foot-high fence along the rear property line and also a short section of the rear portion of the east side property line. And there's an existing 6-foot hedge along the west and remainder of the east property lines. Hope that wasn't confusing. On December 7th of this year, the applicant forwarded to the Community Development Department the Phase 1 archaeological assessment that was required for the site. And the assessment concluded that overall, as the last project, the likelihood of undiscovered and significant cultural resources was very low for this site, and therefore no additional cultural resource testing was recommended. However, due to the sensitive nature of the landscape, and again, voiced concerns by the Chumash community, the report recommended that the applicant arrange for a professional archaeological monitor to be present during all ground disturbing activities. So I am available for questions. Staff is recommending approval of the project as submitted. The applicant has been patiently waiting since the beginning of Planning Commission meeting tonight, and he is available also for questions. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Bennett.
Yes, the garage, the 2 covered parking spaces in the garage. Garage door seems pretty narrow at 16 feet. What's the requirement for a 2-car garage that has to meet a requirement of having 2 vehicles in it?
16, it's 16 feet.
Oh, sorry.
What?
It's 16 feet.
It is 16 feet.
Yep.
So
it's meeting
so
the minimum requirement.
It meets
yeah.
it. Okay, that's all right.
Though you have to be careful at 16 feet. We had that sort of thing in Cincinnati, and if you make a sharp turn, you may leave marks on the side of your vehicle as you go into that 16-foot
I get it.
hole in the wall.
Yeah. The only other question is there appears to be only one pad for air conditioners, which is next to the ADU. I don't see one next to the house itself, and I just everything is
Be a
really
good question for the
packed-
applicant.
Is really packed in there pretty tight. I guess that's for the
We're still trying to
Yeah,
clarify
we're
things with
delivering, but
staff, and
I'd
we'll
leave
get to
that
you.
question for the
Appreciate
applicant.
you sitting through the service.
I think they can
sir.
speak to the HVAC question specifically.
Yeah. Okay, Vice Chair Nolan, please. I see your hand raised.
Yes. If I'm reading this right, is the front entry to the main residence on the north side of the building where the living room is?
I'm getting my bearings. Yes, It is
Okay.
on the north elevation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Trent, any questions?
Yeah, just from the drawings, are there currently 3 detached buildings, or is it 2 buildings with an attached garage? I'm just trying to make sense of it. And the lot is the lot currently vacant? Is that correct?
The lot is currently vacant, and there are
All
two
right.
structures proposed. One of
Two
them has
structures.
a attached garage with a second story above it.
Oh, I see. Okay, just the drawing is kind of weird.
There
All
used
right,
to be
okay, that
3
makes
buildings
sense.
there, and they're all gone. It's a green field now.
Right, gotcha. Okay. Okay. And the footprint is within the guidelines of development on the property, on the lot?
Yes, the lot coverage is within the required lot coverage or allowable lot coverage.
I've got the same question. There's no problem in putting a front door on the back side of the house? This is a house that faces Topa, but you have to walk around to the back side of the house
The
to get to the door which goes into the living room, right?
the front door to this single-family structure is on the north side, which is the street-facing side.
It's something there that, it says courtyard. There's a doorway right next to the garage. And the room there says courtyard.
Oh, you enter a courtyard. Okay.
Oh, maybe
got it.
that's it.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay? Yeah.
Maybe the other one's a back door. Okay.
Uh-huh. I don't have any questions for staff. I've got some errata that I've discussed with Maura for the resolution. Let's hear from the applicant then, and thank you for your patience, sir. Please identify yourself and speak to us.
My name is Scott Chassé, and I'm proposing this this house, and it's been a long time coming. I've owned the lot for 20 years, and
Whoa.
I built the house next door.
Oh, you have that white stucco house?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one 20 years ago, and I figure it's a good time to do something. But
You recognize you're going to be living right next to the wild animals at Wachters.
that's right. You got to like chickens.
Chickens, ducks.
Chickens and ducks and hay.
Yeah. That's Ojai.
That's Ojai, yeah. So
Okay.
that's one of the things that are on my mind, but I think it'll be all right
Okay.
next to Wachters.
Any questions for the applicant?
I'd like to thank him for building another dwelling in the town. That's great.
Yeah, and it's a nice,
I mean,
quiet,
it's
nice,
three.
quiet little street
You're
there.
building 3 houses. When I took this job, I was informed that we build an average of 1 new house a year in Ojai. So you've got 3 dwellings here on 1 property. And
That's why I'm saying it's time.
you're showing it can be done.
It's
Yep.
making sense.
Okay. Vice Chair Nolan, any questions for the applicant?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. You're satisfied with whatever landscaping there is in the current drawing package?
Yeah, none of it's native, but that's okay. It's all, climate appropriate, meaning it doesn't need a lot of water. This is a quick question for staff though. And maybe this hasn't even happened. I know City Council had talked about fire zoning in the city of Ojai. Is that still not established? I mean, I take this back. We talked about zoning the entire city as high fire.
High fire
Is that-
hazard zone, yeah.
So
Yeah, high fire hazard, yeah.
the CAL FIRE maps designate most of the city as a very high fire hazard severity zone. I believe there's been no council action on that issue. But there's the state designation, the state maps show it as a very high fire hazard severity zone.
Yeah, the only reason I brought it up was the juniper is, even if you go on the county list, not that I'm opposed to the plant, I've used it myself in landscapes, but they're tall, kind of cylindrical junipers, and they can be a fire hazard. But that was my only plant that I had a question about. Otherwise, it's very simple, but it's very water efficient. And I noticed they had a note about the irrigation. They're going to be using drip irrigation, and I believe they said a smart controller. So all of that's good.
Okay. Commissioner Trent, any questions for the applicant?
No, I think I'm okay.
All right. Well, we thank you for your time, sir. Please have a seat, and we will open the public hearing. And Sherry, who's here to talk?
We have Annie Cox.
Annie, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm Annie. My husband Danny and I we're the neighbors directly adjacent to Scott's lot, and we're just calling to be supportive. He's been a very courteous neighbor, and we look forward to having him here. And Scott was actually the contractor on our home, which we love, and it's incredibly well built and beautiful, and we're glad he's building something in a similar style to our home, and it's going to enhance the neighborhood and the street. And he made some thoughtful design choices to put the driveway alongside kind of our shared lot line, give a little more space. And he just made some thoughtful choices. Ours is a funny little street down here. We're like a dead end street that's only 1 block long, and we've got the car wash on it. We're all packed in here. But it'll be a good addition.
Okay, thank you. Sherry, anyone else wants to speak?
Yes. We have Erica Helson.
There we go. Erica, go ahead, please.
Hi, I actually submitted my comments just as a written comment, so I hope you have those. I didn't come prepared to speak.
Erica, they came after like 5 at 5:45 when the meeting was getting ready to start, so they have not been provided to the commission.
Would you like to verbally summarize your comments for us then, ma'am?
Sure. Like Annie said, we also, my husband and I, live on the street. We support the project. We've met Scott, and we think that it will be a good addition to the street. Our only concern, and I think that this is more a comment for the commission, not an issue with Scott's proposal, is that we understand, or my understanding is that ADUs do not require dedicated parking. So,
yep.
Yeah, so my understanding would be that this project would require 2 covered parking spots, but there's potential for, let's say that there were 3 couples occupying each building, so the single family unit and the 2 ADUs, there may be as many as 6 cars, but only 2 parking spots. And so again, this is not, I think the rules are what they are and we understand them, but we just wanted to comment to the commission that parking is a real issue on this street. Since we are only 1 block off of downtown, we have a couple of restaurants nearby, especially on the weekends with all the tourists. There's just not a lot of parking for the residents, and several of the homes do not have parking. We have 1 parking spot that we were able to get through a variance from your commission. So that's just a consideration, that parking is pretty tight, especially if you want to have friends over and rely on some street parking, it's hard to come by. And I think that depending on how many vehicles come with this new project, I think parking could become problematic.
I think we hear you. You're right, though. The fact that ADUs and junior ADUs do not require additional parking is part of state law. That is out of the city's hands. So.
Correct. And in addition to that, I don't want to. She actually did come before this commission at an earlier date, and it wasn't a variance; it was a PDP, a plan development permit.
Okay. Sherry, do we have anyone more wishing to speak?
We have one more in the waiting room, but there's no hand raised. Stephen DeBro. So I guess not. He's not raising.
Stephen, do you wish to speak?
Okay. No hand raised.
Sounding like not. Okay. Then we will close the public hearing, and we'll come back to deliberation, just the four of us. Like I said, I have some errata for the resolution that I need to sign, if we get that far. And Maura and I have already been through it, but I'll summarize if the rest of the commissioners want to know what minor things there were in there. Namely, on page 1, the first recital, 830 should be 860. On the third recital, the address is 401. Page 2, the second recital, subparagraph E says the exterior lighting is proposed to be night sky compliant. I think it's required to be, but it wasn't proposed to be. That was in the staff report. Right?
Correct.
That's correct.
And then on page 3, unless I misunderstood what Maura said at the outset, the design review permit is required because this is a single-family residence that's going up in the VMU. And then there's a separate approval that's required, in a sense, a separate approval for the second floor on the garage, whether it's a JADU or something else. But project-specific condition number 2 says this approval constitutes the city's authorization to construct an addition to the second story of the existing residence. I think it's because it's in the VMU, it's authorization to construct a single-family residence and an addition there too. Is that correct, or did I misunderstood?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
It's not an existing, no. Okay.
And once again, you folks are getting really good at writing these resolutions. They're detailed, they're complete, and I salute you on that. And I'm happy with the project. I walked down that street 4 years ago to look at Mr. Chase, is it Chase?
Yeah,
Chassé, Mr. Chassay's white building, which is white resident, which is right next door, because my stucco contractor recommended that as one to look at to see if that's the sort of finish that I wanted on our house when we remodeled. And it was very attractive, and that's what we did, a slightly different color, but that's a nice looking house as well, and I presume that we'll have the same quality on this new development. Commissioner Bennett, any thoughts in the deliberation?
Nope.
Okay. Vice Chair Nolan?
No, I think it's a great project. I'm excited with the 3 houses.
That's
going
great.
in.
Okay,
Big
Commissioner.
bonus for the community. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Commissioner Trent, any final thoughts?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm good. Thank you.
Sound like it to me. Could we have a motion then regarding item number 5?
Sure.
Anyone? Vice Chair Nolan?
Sure. I'll make a motion that the planning commission adopt resolution, I don't know what the number is on that one. Attachment
Be
A approving
assigned.
design. Yeah, I guess they'll assign it. Design review permit DRP 21-009.
Terrific. Do we have a
And
second?
including the changes that Chair Quillisi,
Yeah,
the
the
overall
errata
was included
we can do,
Correct.
right. As amended, I guess.
as amended.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Second?
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Bennett, any discussion? Sherry, would you then call a roll?
Chair Quilisi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Nolan,
Yes.
Commissioner Trent,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing such a nice project to the city, sir. All right, let's go on to item 6, future agenda items. Lucas, you want to steer us through that?
Sure. So, if you're looking at January 5th, you're seeing that we're pretty empty. I will admit there is a possibility that there could be an item on the 5th, but I'm not making any promises at this point. We've got to work through that to ensure that it's ready to go.
If it showed up, would it be a big item? I'm not suggesting we do something like the 3 hours that we spent on Tipple and Ramble, but.
Probably
If it's something
not.
minor, I wouldn't be objecting to just moving everything to the 19th.
To the 19th. Yeah, I think that's probably where we'll end up landing. Only because I think we're working through just the final details on some of these. Like I said before, so if this commission remembers, heading into November, I identified that we were in a logjam and there were several projects over the next 2 months that we were going to be going through. And you have just experienced that over the last 2 months. I want to applaud this commission, first of all, before we go into the January 19th items, that for this commission to go through 3 meetings over the last 3 weeks and to plow through some pretty heavy material is a testament to I would say, to this commission. So I just wanted to thank the commission for being willing to have a special meeting, be there for the special meeting, and certainly to walk through the heavy, dense material. So thank you. Which is probably a reason why we were able to put everything on and then potentially not have that January 5th meeting. The 19th, though, I'm seeing at least 2 items on the agenda.
Oh, 216 East Matilaha coming back, yes.
Yeah, and we're working through those comments that we received at the last meeting with the applicant currently. We just met with them today. I know Maura has been working with them as well to work through some of those pieces right now, and there'll be more meetings to follow with them leading into that 19th meeting. In addition, there is a zone change, general plan amendment for 309 North Blanche, and that's really the church that was located there. It's been vacant, purchased, and they're looking to rezone and allow for single-family residence. And that's as far as I'm going to go because I don't want to get in trouble. Just know that it'll be coming up.
Okay, it's only a zoning change, nothing else?
I don't want to go any further because I can tell that
it's not on the agenda today.
It's not, but I'm just identifying it. I'm just reading it verbatim here. And then it's specified here, general plan update, but I think really what it is the environmental justice that I think you can expect and anticipate. So there'll be some information on that
Had to
as
do
well.
it sometime.
Yep. And then with every meeting, we've got the work plan, and I think leaning into this new year, we'll talk about each of those items and kind of go into them and unpack each of them. I know Commissioner Bennett, you and I need to have a conversation offline and get you up to date with some stuff so you're not feeling so lost when we start talking about that stuff, but you're present and able to participate.
Lucas, if you mind if I jump in here?
Sure.
Really quickly. So for the commission, on these future agenda items, one item I would like to add is that Epi, who is here today, will be replacing me on the Planning Commission as your attorney. I am leaving my firm, but you will be in good hands with Epi. So Epi Margolin, I expect he'll reach out to the commission individually to introduce himself, and he'll be present at these meetings. So thank you again. I thank you so much for putting up with me over the last year and a half or so during COVID. I apologize. Some of you, I didn't get a chance to meet in person because we've never really come off Zoom, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I enjoyed working with this commission, and I really want to commend what you guys on the attention to detail and the work you guys put in. So I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll miss you.
Yeah, we will miss you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Lucas, do you anticipate when we're going to, if we are going to be seeing either the El Roblar come back in the first quarter of the new year, or?
I can speak to that. I think it's, I didn't put it on a pending, and I'm not really sure why it should have been on pending, because it is still out there. So is the AT&T facility, which is kind of in that same loop of going through and making sure we've got all the bits and pieces before we can start going forward. There's a good possibility. I mean, I'm meeting with them on a weekly basis right now to go through critical pieces that we've already talked about with this commission. So just know that will likely be coming back in the very near future.
I watched a portion of the Historic Preservation Commission, and how much more process do they have? I thought they had most of what they needed to work with.
I don't know if I can I respond to that?
Well, we can give a general idea, but okay. I would caution not going into the details of it because it's not agendized for today.
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily start to deliberate or have a kind of an unpacking of where we're at in the process. Just know that when it comes back to this commission, it has gone through the pieces to the puzzle for this commission to make a determination.
Okay. The HPC has not yet agendized or discussed El Roblar, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we won't see it again at least until after that.
I can't guarantee that. It could be before then, but I'm working with them right now. So I don't want to go into any more detail on that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. The AT&T wireless that you have as pending.
Yep.
Do you see that coming back as early as the 5th of January?
No, I can't. There's pieces that haven't been addressed at this point that we're working through right now.
Okay. Well, why don't we just cancel the 5th of January and make a clean break? What do you think?
Good to me.
Sounds good to me.
Almost as a reward to having 3 meetings in a row.
So the commission.
Yeah, we're still going to average 2 meetings a month.
Yeah. Commission can, if they want, they can formally motion to cancel the 5th meeting.
Right. Someone like to make a motion to cancel the January 5th meeting on the basis that we anticipate no cases will be available for our deliberation?
Sure, I'll do it.
Great.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission cancel the January 5th, 2022 regular meeting, as there are no agenda items to date
Okay.
for that night.
I'll second that for discussion purposes. Anyone have a thought?
No, I think it's well deserved.
All right. Sherry, would you call the roll on that motion, please?
Quillisi,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Bennett.
Yes.
Terrific. I see that we do not have a city council liaison here tonight, but I do want to provide staff, and before you have your general comments, and I expect there will be some, commission members, first of all, anything of interest that you want to bring up? all right? As far as the staff, I'd like to add my compliments to what Commissioner Bennett had to say. We have been through 3 hard meetings this month, but we wouldn't have held any one of them if the staff hadn't been through the same hard work prior to each meeting. And I've said it before, I don't know how you people find time to sleep. Because you not only have to sort out all the issues, then you have to put everything in very formal legal language and make sure it's all right so that we can sign legal documents and codify our decisions. And my hat's off to you, all of you. And to Sherry as well for increasingly clear meeting minutes that I'm just having fun reading these days. So, thank you all. And Lucas or Maura, anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you. Well, except for thank you for the compliments, but thank you.
Well deserved.
Mara is who keeps me looking good, I'll have to admit.
That's her job.
She goes above and beyond, and I appreciate that. So I don't know if anybody listened to City Council last night, but I wanted to just give a brief on it if I could.
I missed it.
On items that I think would be of interest to this commission.
Please.
Specifically SB 9. There was quite a bit of discussion regarding that last night. Staff brought forward a draft urgency ordinance, which was discussed in great detail, and I would say to a certain degree debated back and forth. To remind this commission, an urgency ordinance requires a 4/5 vote, so it would need 4 council members to vote in a positive nature for that urgency ordinance to come into play. Fairly aggressive in terms of that urgency ordinance, I would say, to a certain degree, to address SB 9 concerns. The council was just not in agreement with it and ended up voting it down. So, but that still doesn't mean that SB 9 is in limbo. It just means that those stricter standards or development standards that are objectionable standards just aren't in play here. So we still lean on the state standards as they come forward January 1st.
So the city passed on making standards stricter than SB 9 at
Yeah,
this
I would
time.
say going above and beyond what some of those standards were. Things as simple as height, fire separation, things like that. We're looking to be very clear. There were other pieces to that as well. And at the end of the day, a council, after making, I would say, a fairly informed decision, ended up deciding to pass on it at this time. So I think we're going to play the waiting game to see how many people actually end up applying for and going through.
Well, it may come
the
up
SB 9
again,
process.
but
I think it probably
for the
will.
moment, SB 9 is going to be the rule.
Yeah.
Okay. This has to do with lot splits and building additional residential units on split lots.
I've got a question. In one version of this earlier, it was specific to areas around transit.
I think that has to do with more of the parking perspective in terms of how that gets addressed. But it's really it's for single family residential zones is really what it boils down to. So, for instance, VMU wouldn't qualify.
Yeah. The other is
Commissioner Bennett, you and I really do need to have a conversation about some of these things because I'd like to bring you up to speed on several of them.
At one point, I knew SB 9, and then it didn't pass on the legislature, and it came back again, and I just wasn't sure. And at one point, there was specifically they were attempting to redensify around rapid transit.
Oh, yes.
stops.
High-quality transit corridors, I think,
transit
is the
the
phrase,
thing
and we
that
don't
they're-
have one.
Well, I was going to say, we have to be very careful about what we call our trolley, because we don't want to be in a situation
I don't think the
where-
trolley wouldn't qualify in this case. It really drives itself, and I think the attorneys understand as well. on the frequency in which they come in.
It's
So
something like long distances and every 15 minutes coverage.
something like, yeah, something to that
what
degree.
generally
The 30
defines that
seconds on
high
SB9
quality.
is it allows for ministerial subdivisions, essentially, where we've got to process them at staff level. So it doesn't, typically subdivisions would end up coming before this body. It does not anymore. Not for the SB9 qualifying subdivisions.
Right.
So.
Okay. Anything else you want to bring up?
I think that's it. That was the big piece.
I'm sorry, did someone up on the screen raise a hand? Yes, Commissioner
Yeah.
Trent.
Sorry, this is an unrelated item, but just had a question on the parking in lieu. I know we kind of briefly discussed it via email, but just curious if what might be next steps on that, if that's a discussion item that we can potentially put on the agenda or.
So there's a couple different ways, and I know Commissioner Trent had sent me an email in regards to this and wants to talk about it further. I think Chair Quillisi and I probably need to talk offline about potentially putting that on a future agenda. So that could very well happen.
The 19 doesn't look that full right now.
On the
Maybe we could do it
19.
then.
But I do think that there's an opportunity for a discussion and try to unpack that. I have a lot more information to go into on that, Chair Quillisi, but also to Commissioner Trent. Sorry, the night is late. But there's a lot of information, and I think it's important for this entire commission to kind of understand where in lieu fees come from, kind of the purpose of them and the benefits there. And I don't want to get into the details on them because it's not an agendized item at this point, but I think we can certainly look at having that in a future item.
Thank you. I
Worthwhile
appreciate
discussion
that.
item. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Seeing no evidence of additional topics, it is 9:45, and I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all. And
Thank
my
you.
compliments to my fellow commissioners. This is hard work, and everyone is doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good night.